You know it's this. Take a perk and a talk of that shit. Money swallowing like sis. Did it perfect in the kid. Got a billion who sang on my head. Look up better put on the road I just spent. I know we got $1 million. The devil that shit ain't not cheaper again.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to MangaMuse. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the fourth part of What If Naruto Enters Invincible? Special note, this fanfic is written and a masterpiece of NeonZangetsu on FANFICTIONnet. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. Nice. Sinister rounded on her. Dear daughter, you have no idea. No, wait, what he's saying makes sense. Angstrom thumbed his chin, head bobbing in a nod. I told you that I've met multiple versions of you, scarce though they were. You've all been through different circumstances, doubtlessly, so has this one. Why, I once met a Naruto who called himself Vanguard. He even claimed to be the son of conquest. Sinister spat. Never. The children cooed curiously. Who? Anissa agreed with a scoff of her own. Impossible. That monster cares only for BLD and battle. He'd never bother to breed with anyone. Levi shuddered, mildly disturbed by their verbal vehemence. Say what you will, but there were good iterations too. I seem to recall a rather decent fellow by the name of Multitask. Now it was Naruto's turn to perk up with a title like that. Said iteration must be an expert in shadow clones. What was he like? Sinister leaned in, feigning disinterest, but he could see a gleam in his eye. Was he alone as well? For some reason, the dimension hopper smiled. No, he was a father, too, but the adoptive sort. I'm sorry, a quick glance towards Polly confirmed his suspicions. As far as I can tell, the two of you never met in that universe. Eve pulled a face. Polly pulled her children close, whining but a little. Ah, so no multiverse version of me? I think one of you is quite enough. Thanks, hun. But if this guy is you, he must have ended up with someone, surely. Naruto and his sinister counterpart leaned in, quietly curious. Angstrom leaned back. I really shouldn't. There are rules. You've broken plenty of those already, fool. Anissa snapped at him for his perceived cowardice. Spill the green beans already. Amanda and Jessica shared a blink. Green beans. Luca stuck out his tongue. Yuck. Polly snickered into a fist. I think you mean regular beans, Anissa. Why would I? Are they not one of the same? Besides, I dislike green beans. Josh groaned. Oh God, we agree on something. Sinister rolled his eyes toward the ceiling. I am surrounded by idiots. Levi looked left, right, and found no aid in sight. In the end, he said, and gave up the ghost, named several names, one of which evoked a visible reaction in all parties. Polly squealed happily. You got with Debbie? Josh and Eve audibly, wretched, but it was a latter who recovered first. Mom, no. That's Mark's mom. Don't care. You should see how she looks when she lets her hair down. Naruto gagged. That's Nolan's wife. Angstrom Levi dared to raise his hand again, DMN him. Insofar as I can tell, he never came to Earth in that universe. He was content when I found him, but unwilling to help with my experiment. Come to think of it, he was the one who pointed me toward you. Anissa looked pleased with herself, but she was also grinding her teeth. Thula, of all people, that woman is the bane of my existence. So, Polly posited the necessary question, naturally, how many kids? Naruto squawked angrily. Don't we already have enough? Angstrom reluctantly held up both hands, with one thumb, tucked inward. Kurama wheezed. Naruto nearly fainted on the spot. That many, huh? If you think that's bad, you should see what Vanguard got up to. No, 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 he clamped over the man's mouth before his mind could be burned by more knowledge of his other lives. I've heard more than enough. Everything you've said sounds nice. Nice? He went still. Nice? Sinister scoffed, drawing his ire now as he repeated himself. What exactly is nice about this? Why have more than one child? Quality beats quantity any day. He's setting his children up for failure, clearly. Eve kicked his shin. He didn't flinch in the least, but he did frown at her, betraying his confusion. What was that for, hun? For being a PP. Polly flung up a hand. Samantha Eve Uzumaki. That's $5 in the swear jar. But Mom. No buts. Pivoting seamlessly, she handed little Amanda off to Jessica, rose to her feet and jabbed a finger into Sinister's chest. And as for you. You are better than this. The finger broke with an audible crack. Eve yelped and slammed a series of pink visors over the eyes of her younger siblings with a pair of earmuffs besides. Ow, SHT. Well, that she did, too, because Polly recoiled with a pained hiss, clutching her damaged digit. Right, still fragile, forgot about that. SHT, SHT, SHT. Ugh, that F hurts. Why did you do that? Sinister blinked, a look of confused horror crossing his face. Did I do something wrong? Polly promptly punched his chest and promptly broke her hand. Ow! F that hurts. Naruto lunged forward. Levi seized his shoulder. Wait, I think she's onto something. By maiming herself? Just watch. Even brandished a glass jar, currently rattling with a great deal of change. Swear jar, Mom. Polly ignored her daughter and backhanded Sinister, snapping his head to the side. Pop went her other wrist. Stop. Sinister stepped back, edging away from the woman who had just broken both her hands, hitting him. Stop that. Stop hurting yourself. Then stop being an ass. She stalked after him, arms limp and bloody at her sides. You act like you're so much better than us, but right now, you're nothing more than a bully. And Sinister, really? Watched the X-Men recently, have you? Choose a better name. Preferably one that doesn't make you sound like a gigantic edgelord. Poor Sinister looked like he'd seen a ghost. Had his Polly said that to him? No, he muttered. Stop that. You're not her. Polly reared back to headbutt him, heedless of the consequences. Naruto broke free from Angstrom. He needn't have. All right. Sinister, Naruto flung up a hand to catch Polly gently before she could bloody her forehead against his costumed chest or worse. Just will you hold still and let me heal you? That depends entirely on you. She growled up at him, this weak, frail human only recently empowered with chakra. Will you behave yourself, mister? I will, love, he sounded almost subdued, looked it, too. Just hold still. She hissed. You hold still. Yes, ma'am. Anissa titled her head and hummed her approval. Look how easily she broke him. Your mate may be weak in body, but she has the spirit of a true Viltrumite. Don't compare her to your kind, alien. Sinister tooted, she's clearly superior. Angstrom whistled. Would you look at that? Naruto blanched. Oh, hell no. Don't you dare go and riz up another version me. Too late, it seemed, a small, fond smile crossed his counterpart's face as he took a hold of her hands, set the bones in her arms, and began to heal her. It was different from own methods he used. Roaring red radiance poured out of Sinister's gloved palms, crawled across Polly's limbs, and healed them almost instantaneously. He was no slouch at mending wounds himself, but this was something different. Darker. He didn't want to say evil, because it wasn't, but it felt older. More primal. Eve released her siblings with a huff, allowing them to see and hear. Once more. How are you doing that? Sinister scoffed at him. Do you know nothing of your heritage, girl? Or were you simply trained differently than mine? No, never mind. It's too difficult to explain, and I don't have the patience for it. Polly grumbled, but didn't shake him off until Hai finished. You're still a JRK. Naruto found himself agreeing with his wife, slinging an arm around her and drawing her waist and once his counterpart finished. Arrogant, wasn't he? Or was that just a facade, sinister masquerading how he truly felt? He couldn't read this BSTRD. Someone was blocking him, likely his version of Kurama, and thereby prevented him from reading his true intentions. Why hadn't his Kurama made himself known for that matter? Why was he hiding? Only one way to find out, he supposed. Steeling himself, he released Levi and rounded on his smirking counterpart. Why are you being such a PP? Because, Sinister growled into a fist, lean features betraying the intensity of his anger, I'm focused on the matter at hand. There's only one reason I'm bothered to come to this cracked-up universe of yours, and it isn't to trade banter about those who were better off than me. If we could please get back to that. Fine, fine, he rolled his eyes in return, although I don't see why you need us. Did you at least try to contact the Mauler twins in your universe? This sort of thing is right up their alley. A slow, confused blink with his reward. Is it? I killed them some time ago with the other problems plaguing my world. Angstrom assumed the tone of a patient teacher, and how many other problems did you remove? All of them. His jaw clicked open. You're not joking, are you? I am not. My world has no crime. Probably because he killed anyone who considered it. Duck sake. Everyone face-palmed, Anissa and the children included. What? Perhaps for the first real time since he had arrived, Sinister, Naruto appeared uncertain. What did I do? Amanda looked to Eve. Mama, is Uncle Sinister dumb? His fellow blonde sputtered. Josh snickered. More like what didn't you do? Naruto grit his teeth, on the verge of hysterical, despairing, laughter. See, yeah, that's your problem. You destroyed anyone and everyone that was a threat to you. You didn't even try to talk to them, befriend them, let alone use them. There it was again, that look of confusion as though the concept had sailed right over his handsome head. Why would I? Polly despaired. Oh geez, the me of your world must have had a hell of a time dealing with you. Not at all. She was the one who encouraged most of my actions. She said there couldn't be crime if there were no criminals to commit it. Okay, starting to feel slightly concerned about giving her back to you now, buddy. Sinister prattled on, idly sweeping an arm around his cape. Everything I did was for the good of the earth, and the good of my family. Jessica raised a pale hand, made quietly inquisitive by the phrasing of his words. Shouldn't your family come first? Child, he tooted at her, if there's no planet to live on, there can be no family. Just ask Dinosaurus. Eve wrinkled her nose. Dino who? Josh joined her. Sounds like some kinda discount villain you'd find at a bargain bin sale. Sinister smiled. It was not a nice smile. Oh, you haven't met him yet, have you? Trust me, you'll know him when you see him. Do yourself a favor, listen to his advice, and kill him the moment you're done. You'll save thousands of lives in the long run. Invincible was an idiot to work with him. Idly, he began counting off his finger. Then there's the omnipotous guy, be sure and kill him rather than seal him away like I did, he's a pain to deal with, even more. And be sure to off-dock Seismic before he captures all of Earth's heroes. That was an annoying day for Polly and me. Josh dared to raise a hand. Did your version of Mom have powers? Polly perked up, suddenly very interested in what Sinister might have to say. She certainly did, little look-alike. He touched a finger to his forehead. And I'll never tell you what they were. Boo. HSSS. Spoil sport. Call me all the names you like. Now where was I, tapping his chin? I suppose I should warn you about Robot, he certainly surprised me. A nagging feeling tugged at him, he didn't like it. Why are you giving me all these names? His counterpart laughed at him, a short, sad snippet of laughter. Because I pity you. Our worlds clearly aren't all that. I was more proactive in mine. If it weren't for him, jerking his chin toward Engstrom, he scoffed anew in mild derision. We wouldn't have met at all. You clearly didn't get off your ass until the government kidnapped you and yours. Anger sparked in him like a raging flame, sharply furious, itching to lash out. Smash his face in. Break his stupid smug jaw. Rip and tear. A quelling look from Polly cooled the flames. He was starting to understand, now. Harsh, angry, jaded. It was so easy to let those emotions overcome oneself. During moments of stress especially, but clearly Sinister had let them consume him. Was this what he would become if he kept being a grumpy BSTRD all the time? Isolated? Alone, with no one for Kurama but company? It was an unpleasant thought. Lifting his chin, he chose to be the bigger man. I got 4 more kids out of than you, I wouldn't trade them for the world. As you say. He shrugged, paused, then glanced at them anew. They have their mother's spirit if nothing else. Josh glared at him. You're some kinda an as you know that. Language. Sinister tooted softly. Dear boy, try ruling a forsaken planet alone for a few centuries and see how that affects your mental state. Naruto blinked, briefly taken aback. Just how old are you? Truthfully, a slow blink followed, I don't know. I stopped counting after 500 years. Polly looked to Anissa for reasons he didn't understand. See? What did I tell you? The Viltrumite soldier squirmed under her gaze. I suppose you have a point. Odd glances aside, that certainly explained a few things. No wonder Sinister, Naruto was acting like a grumpy old man. Looks aside, he was one. Perhaps time flows faster in my universe. Maybe I'm from a different era. I couldn't tell you. He had to address the elephant in the room. And your Kurama? Is dead. His power remains, but he's gone. What happened? Sinister bit his lip. A mistake on my part. Nothing you need concern yourself with. The two of you are in better sync than we ever were, it shouldn't be a problem. He flicked a stray thought inward to his partner. What do you think? Kwama was silent for a long time. A worrying amount of time. You good? I'd say Baryon mode, but if that were the case, my chakra would be missing as well. That he still possesses it without me is concerning. The 10 tails, then. Maybe. But if he's that much stronger than us, why hide it? Another question he didn't have the answer to. While we're on the topic of allies, Sinister said in response to something he hadn't heard, you'd be smart to recruit Machine Head. Engstrom made an annoyed noise. Not him. Anissa was confused for an entirely different reason. What kind of name is that? Sinsider scoffed. Your ignorance is showing again, whelp. He's a snarky BSTRD, but he has his uses. You would do well to make use of his expertise. I probably should have. Might want to pluck Titan out from under him while you're at it. He was a PP, but he knew how to get things done. I'd warn you about Universa as well, but it seems I'm early. On that front. For a guy who claims he never worked with supervillains, you sure know an awful lot of them. A slow blink was his reward. Of course I know all about my enemies. How else would I be able to destroy them? The way he said that, with those dead eyes, as though it were nothing, sent a shudder through him. Was this really what he could have become? There it is. Sinister buelled forward, eyes wild, teeth flashing in a near-feral snarl. That's the look. Strange seeing it from my own face. But you're not me, are you? Our lives are too different. You could never become me. And I hope, for your sake, that you never do. Although, maybe I should be sure. A yellow-clad fist whistled in from his peripherals. Eve yelped. Dad! She needn't have warned him, he saw it coming a mile away. Naruto caught the punch, wrenched it down, planted his feet and threw a counter. Sinister mimicked him and intercepted it with one of his own, creating a shockwave in his wake. Neither budged. Evenly matched, it seemed. How annoying. You think you can take me? Sinister sneered, all teeth as he strained against him. I don't think, I know. You think Anissa was strong? She'd mid-level be at best. Conquest and battle beast. Now those two were a fight. One of them gave me this. He tilted his head, letting his long spiky hair fall aside to reveal the grisly dent in his skull. You have no idea what's coming, you're not ready. None of you are. That settled it, his counterpart definitely didn't have the 10 tails, he'd be on his as otherwise. But you will be. Sinister dropped his fists as quickly as he'd thrown them. Don't do what I did, don't destroy everything in your path like me. Use your enemies. Turn them into allies. Or lovers, if you're into that sort of thing, he scoffed, side-eyeing Anissa who bridled in return. Make yourself some powerful little hybrids like Invincible and... Question. Eve raised her hand. Who's Invincible? You've mentioned him 3 times now, colon. Sinister side-eyed his not-daughter with a sigh. Is this really relevant? His little spitfire of a daughter stood her ground. It is to me. He's actually Mark, if you must know. Eve made happy Eve noises and kicked her legs against the sofa, squirming with glee. Mark gets his powers. Eventually, though you might wish he didn't. Sinister buelled on, ignoring her. Forge yourself an army and pray that the Viltrum Empire doesn't come knocking on your door as early as it did mine. Oh, and don't let anyone kill Cecil. He was useful. Naruto didn't say a word, but his sinister self was him, he knew his tells and read him like a book, nodding before he could hope to interject. You've already made up with him? Good. Anyone have a pen and paper? What are you up to now? Sinister smacked the back of his head. I'm doing you a favor, dolt. Best accept it while I'm in a good mood. Was he insane? Had something broken in his mind? Going from generous to greedy, from sad to mad, happy to despondent. Just what trials had this version of himself gone through? I have a pen and a tissue, Engstrom offered weakly. Will that be enough? Sinister, Naruto grabbed the former, then frowned. No, it won't. Notebook. I need a notebook. Eve raised a hand. I have one for school. His smile softened, manic blue eyes becoming a touch more lucid. Fetch it, would you kindly? Eve sprinted up the stairs. So. Polly pushed herself up against him before he and Sinister could come to blows again. How was your day? Naruto granted her a flat stare. Not as eventful as yours, clearly. But surely you were up to something. No point in hiding it, he told her where he had been. Polly threw a fit, and not in the way he expected. You saw a war woman without me? Well, I was a bit busy keeping her and the guardians off the maulers. Without me, she kicked her legs against the cot. You even had her right outside the house while I was in the pod. How am I supposed to get her into our bed if I never run into her? Polly. Not sorry. Sinister rumbled a laugh under his breath. And you be quiet. Eve raced both down the stairs helter-skelter, mildly out of breath. Seemed someone wasn't doing her morning runs. He'd have to work on that. Here. She offered a pearly blue notebook with her name on it. I haven't had a chance to use it yet, so it's mostly empty. Excellent. Sinister opened it and started writing, sketching, wrist flicking to and fro, left and right as he began to scribble down a great deal of information. Pages turned rapidly as he flitted from one to the next, pausing only to hum, mutter something, and move on. It took him exactly 9 seconds to fill the notebook. Naruto knew because he counted them all. There. Sinister offered him the book. Everything I dealt with in my world, every enemy, every encounter, yours for the taking. Use it, or don't. Polly laid a hand on his wrist. Thank you. He averted his gaze. It's nothing. No, it's something. We appreciate this. Really. Naruto reached for it. Ah, his other self swept it out of his reach at the last moment. I have conditions. Or rather, a condition. Singular. I know, you want your Polly. You don't know. Sinister headbutt him, breaking his nose. The loneliness. The despair. I have nothing but memories. Everywhere I look I see ghosts. Each second I spend in this universe reminds me of what I've lost because of my own foolishness. With a deep, shuddering breath he drew back and let him regenerate. But hey, he shrugged. I've done my part. You have your warning. Now give me my wife. Eve scooted closer, daring to touch his arm. Mom really meant a lot to you, huh? Here at last, Sinister's face softened. Crouching down as he'd done only a few minutes before, his doppelganger laid a hand on her head. Grow strong, Eve. Stronger than anyone. Push past that mental block of yours and take control of your powers before it's too late. The sight stirred something in Naruto. He didn't like it. What do you know? That sorry, your daughter is the most powerful person on this planet. She just hasn't realized it. Girl's literally a Green Lantern on steroids, except her creations linger when she wants them to. Naruto tilted his head. Green what? Do none of you read comics? Plebeians. Back in my day no. He shook his head before he could launch into another rant. You're distracting me. Polly is all that matters. Give her back to me. Now. Polly chuckled nervously, averting her gaze. I promised him the Maulers could help. And in an instant, he understood. Hold on, we're saving that for you. She shrugged with one shoulder. They can always grow me another body. One with chakra coils. That'll take months. Maybe a year. I bought myself some time with this. I'll live. Sinister growled a warning. I sincerely hope for his sake that you do. Because I'm not spending a year in this dimension. It sounded so incredibly selfish, but was it? Wouldn't he say the same if the shoe was on the other foot? Even so, it did nothing for his anger. Listen, you. No, you listen. Sinister drew himself up, hovering an inch off the floor, fists clenched tight at his sides. You're me. You know exactly how strong I am. How much destruction would we cause if we fought? How many lives would be lost? How many people would hate your name? Angstrom tooted softly. You show your true colors at last, monster. No, I'm honest. Sinister, Naruto tilted his head and flashed him a toothy grin. I have nothing left to live for. Everything else was taken from me. Quick as his namesake, he rounded on him again. You might be damaged and stuck in a shitty situation at the moment, but at least you have a life. Your wife. A loving family with more children than I ever dared dream of. I don't. He looked to the kids. Josh and Eve warded their younger siblings behind them. Angstrom drew back, ready to portal them to safety. Naruto bridled and took a step forward. Don't even think about it. I won't. His other self shook his head. There are some lines even I won't cross. But my patience has limits and I've reached it. My wife. Now. Today. I helped yours, now restore mine. He kept saying that as if it were easy. Simple, even. He was ignoring one key problem, a ticking time bomb that none of them had yet mentioned. Anissa said it right off. How would we even go about that? Sinister absolutely hissed. Excuse me? What she means, Naruto broached the topic more gently, wary of setting his older self off and starting an all-out brawl in the living room. Look, we might be able to clone her body, but it won't have her mind, let alone her powers. Even if we copy some of our Polly's consciousness over into another body, it wouldn't be your Polly. Sinister's shoulders slumped. You're right. I can't do anything about her powers. Naruto braced himself for violence. Imagine his surprise then, when he raised his gaze, but I have her memories. He balked, quietly incredulous. How? His sinister self reached down into his utility belt and withdrew a metal circuit of some sort, a machinery circuit. It shimmered with pale amber radiance in the light, almost as though it were alive. Her final moments. Sinister held the chip between both hands, cradling it as though it were the most precious thing in the world, which, to him, it probably was. Her thoughts, emotions, life experiences, all recorded onto this. It was a last-ditch effort to preserve her consciousness and transplant it, one that never panned out. I didn't want to put her mind into a robot body, she would hate me for that. As for cloning her a new one, I never could find anyone until now. It should work. It has to work. Would it actually? There was no way to know for certain. It galled him, but a promise was a promise, and he wanted his other self gone, preferably before he caused chaos. He also wanted that notebook. Needed it, badly. If Sinister was telling the truth and he was inclined to believe that this could help him avoid so many threats, protect his family, even save the world. He glanced at Polly, who nodded. Anissa stepped up beside him in silent solidarity. All right. Resolving himself to action, Naruto dared a step forward. We give you back your wife, you give us that book, and we part in peace. Deal? So speaking, he inched forward and offered Sinister his hand in friendship. Silence stretched onward and with it, hesitation. I've got a better idea. The notebook sailed his way. Angstrom dove on it, catching it with both hands and immediately shielding it with his body, lest it be destroyed. No attack came. There you go. Intelligence given in good faith. Sinister met him halfway, not to strike in treachery, but to reciprocate. We have an accord. Wearing a tired smile, his doppelganger reached out to clasp his palm. Take me to the Mauler twins. Mark Grayson had begun to hate himself. There it was, the ugly truth he didn't dare tell anyone. It had been a slow thing at first, a gnawing uncertainty eating at him for the last few weeks now. Simply put, he felt inadequate. All his friends and family had superpowers. Even Eve and her siblings. Especially Eve. She might be his kinda sorta girlfriend now, but the fact remained that he felt like deadweight compared to her. She could do so many things, be so many things, had so many things. And what did he have? Nothing. Maybe that wasn't fair to Mom, but there was. He wanted to be able to fly, he wanted super strength, he wanted to save people, help people. Just like Dad. What good was it being the son of a superhero if you had no powers of your own? What could he do? Go to school, college. Get a job, sit at a desk somewhere. This wasn't who he was. This wasn't who was meant to be. Sighing, he winged a baseball at the wall, watched it bounce, caught it when it came back to him. He'd been doing this for the better part of an hour now, utterly unable to sleep. He threw the ball at the wall, it bounced back, landed in his palm, allowing him to throw it again. Again, and again, and again. Over and over. A CYCL. Was this all he would ever be? No. It couldn't be. He was meant to be more than this. He was meant to be so much more. Wasn't he? Something snapped deep inside him. No. In a fit of pique he whirled and threw the ball again. It bounced off the wall, struck the window, and drilled through it like a dentist would a tooth. He barely had an instant to comprehend it before it shot outside in a trail of flame, struck a car and exploded. The poor thing's alarm went off, wailing and screaming, waking half the neighborhood. Mark scarcely noticed. Did I just? He looked down on his hand, to the hole in the wall, back to his twitching fingers. To the burning car outside. Did I do that? Worried it might have been a one-off, he grabbed his pillow from his bed, and unwilling to throw it, rear back instead, prepared to punch it as hard as he could, only to hesitate at the last second. What if he was wrong? What if it had been a fluke? What if he was dreaming, and none of this was real? Anger sparked in him anew. He punched down. Hard. His pillow took the punch, and exploded in a shower of flying feathers, pelting him with downy goodness. Mark grinned, laughed, coughed now as he nearly swallowed a stray feather, and flopped back onto his bed with the biggest smile. That settled it. He'd gotten his powers early. He couldn't wait to tell Dad. Heck, he couldn't wait to tell Eve. She'd be thrilled. And then, just because he wondered how strong he was. He punched his wall. It absolutely shattered and took most of the window with it in an awful crack, bursting outward in a single blow to spray bits of glass and masonry out into the driveway. A good chunk of it struck Mom's car and instantly set it off, alarm shrieking into the night. He blanched, more than a little chagrined. Oops. But his hand didn't even hurt. No glass in his skin, no cuts, no nothing. Mark? Mom's voice called from across the hall. Was that you? Is everything all right? Laughing, he grinned at his clenched fist and shouted back. Yeah, Mom. I feel invincible. The Maulers looked up from their work as the warehouse door swung open. Mauler 1 blinked. Mauler 2 blinked hard. In hindsight Naruto couldn't really blame them, there were two of him, after all, small wonder they were confused. He'd informed them over the phone of what would be happening, of the change in plans, but even then seeing was believing. They edged back warily from his dour counterpart, giving him a wide berth as he stalked over to the machine that should, restore his wife. The Maulers had done good work for him in the past, and they would in the future. What had Cecil said? Don't waste talent. Even his own alternate was arguing for it. He'd have to look through that notebook once he got back. There was work to be done on that front, allies to recruit, enemies to destroy, crises to avert if, in fact, his other self was telling the truth. Maybe he should share some of it with Cecil. Still, one of the Maulers somehow had the gall to grin at him. Dabbling in cloning yourself now, are we? Sinister snarled and stalked past them, eyes darkly intent on the pod. Naruto walked after him. Don't mind him. He's a pages. I heard that, you cheeky whippersnapper. Stop yapping and start helping. Are you blue buffoons ready or not? The leftmost Mauler managed a nod, only for a first to move itself at his chest. Here. Sinister shoved the chip containing Polly's memories into their hands. Break this, and I'll break you. Now, are you ready? The twins exchanged an annoyed glance, but reluctantly agreed. We're ready. Rudolph Connors was ready. Known as Robot to the outside world at large, his true name and face unknown to all but a select few, his twisted malformed body hidden away, contained in a glass tank where none could see him. Such had been his life for a time, a very long time indeed, now. But no longer. He had chosen his timing well, waited until the ideal moment when Fire's shadow was away from his abode. His latest drone was well prepared, made particularly sturdy, hopefully capable of standing up to a proper punch from the mighty monarch. Was that the right title to give him? Possibly. He hoped so. Fire's shadow was not a being he wished to provoke without proper protection. Even before captivity he had proven himself near godlike in his own right. He'd only grown stronger since. Strong enough to contend with the likes of Viltrumites and more, to cause natural disasters and WHP up storms in his wake. Oh, yes. He had been watching. Waiting, and in waiting, observing. But more than observe, he had done what few else could. Listening. Such a powerful body. If he had his DNA and the proper cloning facilities, he could craft a body that would truly be. Insert title card. But he did not dare. Any attempt to take genetic material from him without permission would result in disaster. His senses were legendary, he would surely sense such an attempt. And even should he succeed, he had no idea how to use this vaunted chakra substance. Such required training, methods he currently lacked. And so he remained bound behind the glass, trapped in this malformed shell. In truth, a small part of him preferred things this way, better for them to see the metal shell than the malformed monster beneath. But he longed to be normal, to see the outside world. To touch. Feel. Be. Perhaps that was a bit poetic of him. He'd had no one but his own thoughts for quite some time now. Working with the Mauler twins was not something he'd considered. What was the saying? The enemy of my enemy is my friend. He would be the first to admit he did not entirely understand humanity, ironic, given he was more human than Fire's shadow and his entire hybrid family. But that was neither here nor there. He was stalling. He knew he was, how foreign it was to feel fear, he'd not felt it since his parents first placed him in the tank. Fire's shadow could, and would, kill him improperly provoked. Moreover, he had no reason to help him, even when asked. Yet he had to reach out to him again. He must, else he'd go mad. Bracing himself, he sent a mental command to his drone, bidding it to step toward the Mauler's warehouse. He was distracted. Open to dialogue. This was his one chance. His best opportunity. A sudden flare of pink light split the sky behind him, arced upward, and struck the drone from the side, annihilating it in a single blast. He scarcely had time to comprehend the sudden ambush before it ended, obliterating the drone and the delicate electronics within it in a rush of fire. The feed cut off in a rush of static, but not before he glimpsed a scowling face. Rudolph heaved a watery sigh within his tank. Blast. He'd forgotten about the daughter. Thrice he had sought to approach Naruto now, and thrice he had stymied. Today, it seemed, would be another day just as the last. For now, he would maintain his silent vigil. Someday he'd escape this tube. That day would come. But not today. Naruto held his breath as the chamber hissed and fell silent, the last lights on the Mauler twins' contraption flickering out. A thin wisp of cooling mist curled around the glass tube where a woman's still form lay. Polly, no, not his Polly, she stood beside him, squeezing his hand so hard it almost hurt, but the other Polly, the one from Sinister's world. The one he was sacrificing so much to bring back. That body wasn't meant for her, it had been meant for his wife, and now they'd have to fashion another, complete with a complex chakra system. Naruto's heart pounded in his chest as he waited for a sign, any sign, that their gamble had paid off. Polly squeezed his hand anew, she had insisted on being here to see this through. Now her violet eyes were fixed on her alternate self with a mix of awe and trepidation. Across from him, sinister Naruto, his darker counterpart, stood rigid with tension. The usually confident, cold-eyed warrior now looked suddenly, unmistakably vulnerable. Sinister pressed both palms flat to the glass, his face inches from the barrier as he peered at his wife's unmoving features inside. Naruto could see the tremor in the man's arms. Despite all his power, Sinister was afraid. Afraid to hope. Behind them, the small crowd of onlookers seemed to share the same taut silence. Eve hovered near his shoulder, pink energy flickering unconsciously around her fists in a fit of nerves. To her, the woman in that chamber was another version of her mother, a mom from a world where things went very differently. They'd had to leave her younger siblings with Brandyworth for this. Wouldn't do to scar the poor kiddos if, and that was a big if, this worked. Even Angstrom Levy had fallen quiet, his usual smug commentary absent as he watched from the corner, arms folded. The dark-skinned dimension traveler swallowed, looking markedly uneasy at the sight of what his knowledge had helped accomplish. By the far wall, Anissa lingered with arms crossed tightly, jaw set. The Viltrumite woman tried to appear aloof, but Naruto saw how her eyes flicked to the chamber with undisguised apprehension. The raw emotion in the room was enough to make even a hardened soldier shift on her feet. A soft beep signaled the final heartbeat monitor coming online. Naruto exhaled sharply as inside the chamber, the woman's chest rose first a tiny, shallow breath, then another. She was breathing. The restoration had worked. By the sage, it actually worked, he thought, relief and disbelief flooding him in equal measure. He exchanged a quick, hopeful glance with his Polly, whose lips parted in a silent gasp. Sinister moved first. In a blur he yanked open the chamber door. The seal broke with a gust of cool air as he wrested it aside and flung it into a wall. He reached in with trembling hands to gather the limp form of his wife. The maulers edged back, wisely holding their tongues. Just as well. There were some lines you didn't cross, and you did not mock a man's wife. Polly. Sinister's voice, usually so arrogant and sure, emerged a broken whisper. Gently, he eased her out, cradling her against his armored chest. The woman's head lolled on his shoulder as he lowered her to the ground, kneeling. For a terrifying moment, her eyes remained closed. Naruto felt Polly's nails dig into his hand, heard Eve's sharp intake of breath. Then the woman stirred. Her fingers curled weakly into the fabric of Sinister's black cloak. Her eyes fluttered open. Naruto's memory flashed to a similar moment months ago, Polly, his Polly, opening her eyes after 12 years in a forced coma. The shock and fearful hope in her gaze. He saw the same thing now in this Polly's eyes as they struggled to focus on the face above her as she stirred in her new body. She blinked, disoriented. "And Naruto?" she croaked, voice thin from long disuse. Her gaze roamed over Sinister's face. Naruto realized Sinister still wore the bone-white mask he'd donned in battle, a habit from ruling his world, and perhaps it confused her. With a shaking hand, Sinister tore the mask off and tossed it aside. He leaned closer, letting her see him fully. "It's me," Sinister choked out. He brushed sweat-damp golden hair from her brow. "I'm here, love. I'm here." The raw emotion on the man's face was startling despite his refined speech. Naruto had never heard himself sound like that, so desperate and tender. The woman, Polly, focused on him. Slowly, recognition dawned and a fragile smile crept onto her lips. You did it," she whispered. "You saved me." A trembling hand rose to cup Sinister's cheek, much as Naruto's own wife had once done to him. Sinister all but nuzzled into her palm, tears bright in his eyes. For an instant, Naruto felt an immense wave of triumph and relief wash through the room. They had done something good. Something miraculous. Behind him he heard Eve emit a joyful little sob, as his Polly murmured, "Thank heavens," even as her voice quivered. He even allowed himself a small smile, basking in the afterglow of what they'd won. But the moment of joy shattered almost as soon as it began. Polly's restored gaze drifted past her husband's shoulder and fell on Eve. Naruto saw the change immediately. Polly's eyes, warm with reunion a heartbeat before, widened in sudden bewilderment at the sight of the pink-haired teen. "Samantha," she breathed. Sinister tensed, turning to follow her line of sight. Eve stepped forward uncertainly. "Hello," she said softly, tears still shining on her cheeks. She managed a wobbly smile. I'm Eve." Naturally, she defaulted to her nickname. "Are you feeling all right?" At the name Eve, a shadow of confusion crossed the revived woman's face. She looked between Eve and Naruto's Polly, who now stood just behind her daughter with an astonished expression. Slowly, the color drained from the woman's cheeks. Her hand clutched Sinister's cloak. This isn't my world," she realized in a whisper. Her eyes darted around the room, really taking it in for the first time, the banks of unfamiliar machines, the faces of strangers, the duplicate versions of people she knew. She saw Naruto standing with her own double. She saw two Narutos, one holding her, and one across the room. Polly's breath hitched in panic. Where's my daughter?" she rasped suddenly, voice rising in alarm. Her gaze swung back to Eve, so like the daughter she remembered, yet older, and cautious, and standing with another Polly who held a baby. "Samantha," the word escaped her in a pained croak. "Where is she?" Sinister's arms tightened around her. "She's not here," he said, anguish threading through each word. "Love, look at me." He struggled to get the words out. "She didn't make it. I'm sorry." Naruto felt his throat constrict. He knew this truth would cut like a knife. In Sinister's ravaged world, their Eve was gone, lost in whatever calamity had befallen them. They had brought her across worlds, but they could not bring back the rest of her family, long since turned to dust in the wind. For a heartbeat, Polly just stared at her husband as if not understanding. Then her face crumpled. A wail of despair tore from her lips. "No, no, no." She pushed away from Sinister's chest, lurching unsteadily to her feet. Sinister rose with her, refusing to let go, but she pounded weakly at his shoulders. "Why? Where is Samantha? Where is my baby?" she cried. Her violet eyes, so like Naruto's Polly's, overflowed with sudden tears. "Where is she?" Eve pressed a hand to her mouth, emotions finally breaking loose as half ran toward the devastated woman. "I'm here," she blurted out, instinctively wanting to comfort her. I mean I'm a Samantha. I'm your Samantha in this world." She hesitated, unsure if her words helped or hurt. "I'm safe, I'm alive. It's okay." Naruto reeled her back, afraid of an imminent explosion. But Polly only sobbed harder, she didn't even seem to see her. "My Samantha, my little girl," her knees buckled, and Sinister supported her carefully to the floor. She didn't seem to notice Eve's offer at all, lost in a private world of grief. Her hands fisted into Sinister's cloak, and she buried her face against his chest. "She's gone." Polly keened, the sound ragged and hollow. "I have nothing left." Naruto felt tears prick his own eyes at the sight. Just minutes ago, this woman had been dead or as good as, and now she was alive, only to feel such immeasurable pain. "We gave her life, but not the life she truly wanted," he thought with a heavy heart. He stepped forward, longing to help somehow, but froze, realizing there was nothing he could do to mend this wound. All his powers, all his miracles, and he couldn't reunite a mother with her lost child. The knowledge burned. Sinister Naruto held his wife tightly, bowing his head over her as she wept, his face a mask of torment. Naruto could see his counterpart's jaw working, hear the hitch in his breath as he fought back his own tears. Sinister's blue eyes met his across the sobbing woman's shoulder, and in them he beheld a familiar helplessness. He wants to comfort her, to make this right, and he can't. Sinister had conquered his world, bent civilization to his will, yet here and now, he was utterly powerless. Polly the original approached carefully, tears streaming down her face in empathy. Slowly, carefully, she knelt on the other side of her alternate self. Gently, she placed a hand on the grieving woman's back. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, her own voice breaking. "I know it hurts. I lost 12 years with my Samantha. I thought I'd lost her forever. I can't imagine losing all of them." Her words were soft, meant only for the other Polly, but Naruto heard the tremor of shared pain. The crying woman lifted her head, eyes red and desperate. She looked at the face of her counterpart identical to hers but lined with concern, and then at Eve, who hovered nearby trembling. Realization seemed to dawn fully, this world's Polly had her daughter alive, had even more children, a family intact. And the unfairness of it all slammed into the revived mother like a tidal wave. She clutched at Polly's sleeve, searching her face. "You're Samantha, she's here." Took her long enough to notice. Yes, the original, Polly answered gently. She reached out and drew Eve closer with her free arm. Eve knelt, allowing this stranger yet not a stranger to take her hand. This is my daughter, our daughter. She's standing right in front of you, healthy and strong, she offered a kind smile, though tears spilled down her cheeks. And you are alive to see her, even if she's not exactly the one you remember. Sinister's Polly stared at Eve through her tears. Her gaze swept over the girl's face, so full of concern, so painfully similar to the little Samantha she'd cradled and sung to sleep in another life. Shaking, she lifted a trembling hand toward Eve's cheek, then halted, snatching it back. No, she squeezing her eyes shut. This isn't mine. None of this is mine, my babies are gone. Her voice cracked on that final word, and she doubled over in grief. Eve burst into tears then, unable to contain herself. I'm sorry, she whispered. She reached out despite the woman's protest, wrapping Polly her mother's double, a woman who in another world had loved her deeply in a tentative embrace. I'm so sorry. The older woman didn't resist. She collapsed against Eve's shoulder, sobbing openly now. I wish there was something I could sew. But she couldn't. None of them could. Naruto looked away, chest tight as emotion threatened to overwhelm him. There was a weight in the air, an ache in his chest he hadn't felt in a long time. It reminded him of battles lost, of funerals attended, of the day he'd first thought Polly had died years ago. It was wrong, they had achieved something incredible tonight, and still it wasn't enough. Some things, even chakra and science and multiverse portals, could not fix. He sensed movement at the edge of the room and glanced toward it. Well, that he did, too, because Anissa abruptly turned upon one heel and stomped toward the exit, her posture stiff. The Viltrumite's eyes were downcast beneath her dark brows, her expression a storm of discomfort and distress she clearly didn't want anyone to notice. But he did. Eve, as Anissa pushed open the heavy door with perhaps more force than necessary, he caught a glimpse of her face, a flash of pain, swiftly masked as anger. Without thinking, Naruto gently freed his hand from his wife's. Polly looked up at him questioningly through her tears. Go, she whispered, nodding toward the door. Talk to her. She understood, Anissa shouldn't be alone right now. Even so, he didn't want to leave them alone. Naruto squeezed Polly's shoulder in silent thanks and stepped away from the heartbreaking reunion unfolding on the floor. Angstrom Levy edged aside as Naruto passed, unusually somber. The portal maker's eyes were fixed on the two, Paulus and Eve huddled together. Gone was his typical smug grin, instead he looked unsettled, even sad. Naruto had no time to dwell on it, but he felt the significance. Even Angstrom, who had wandered countless worlds, seemed struck by the cost of crossing universes etched in the sobbing woman's cries. Levy. I know. Angstrom finally pushed himself off a nearby wall and deigned to speak, no harm will come to them. Besides, I need to have a word with the Maulers anyway. Naruto slipped out the door after Anissa, leaving behind the sounds of quiet weeping and murmured consolations. As the door closed, he heard Sinister's voice break at last in a whispered apology to his wife, and Polly's answering sob. It was almost too much to bear. They had given this family a second chance at life, but not a second chance at joy. Naruto's fists clenched. Sometimes, even a victory can feel like a defeat, he thought grimly as he hurried down the corridor after Anissa's retreating figure. Anissa moved fast, nearly as fast as when she flew. By the time he emerged into the dimly lit corridor, she was already halfway to the exit that led to the facility's rooftop. She didn't so much as glance back. Naruto jogged to catch up, his shinobi-trained steps quiet but determined. Anissa, he called gently. His voice echoed off the concrete walls, stopping her at the threshold of the roof access. She stood rigid, facing away, one hand braced against the door frame. For a long moment she didn't answer. Naruto could see the rise and fall of her shoulders as she took a shuddering breath. Finally, without looking back, Anissa spoke, her tone harsh and tightly controlled. What do you want? She pushed the heavy metal door open, and cool night air swept into the hallway. Above, the sky was a deep black canvas pricked with stars. He approached slowly, giving her space, wary of spurring her into violence. I just wanted to check on you, he said. You've checked, she grunted. Happy now? Oh boy. He followed her through the doorway onto the flat rooftop. The city stretched out beyond the lab's compound, lights glittering in the distance. A breeze tugged at Anissa's short ebony hair and rustled Naruto's blonde locks, but it was he who spoke next. That was a lot to take in back there. Anissa let out a short, bitter laugh. You think? She moved to the edge of the roof, planting her hands on the concrete ledge and staring out at the horizon. In the pale moonlight, her usually proud face was cast in shadow. He could still see the conflict written there, her brows drawn together, lips pressed thin. Not anger, not exactly. Something more raw. He stepped up beside her, resting his forearms on the ledge. For a while, neither of them spoke. The night was quiet, save for the distant hum of traffic and the gentle whoosh of wind. Naruto gave her time, sensing she needed it. He remembered countless nights back in Konoha standing atop the Hokage monument when things got hard, sometimes alone, sometimes with a friend silently by his side. Sometimes silence could speak volumes. At length, Anissa broke the quiet, her voice low. I'm not used to this feeling. She clenched a fist against the ledge. Watching that woman grieve, seeing everyone in there so broken. She exhaled sharply through her nose. It shouldn't bother me. I've seen people cry before. I've seen worlds burn. Her tone tried to be cold, but it faltered. Viltrumites are taught that strength is what matters. That weakness and sentimentality will only get you killed. Naruto tilted his head, studying her profile. Do you believe that? Anissa's jaw tightened. She didn't answer directly. Instead, she looked to the stars above. Back home, if someone lost their family, they'd be expected to move on, or at least hide their pain. Public displays of sorrow, she shook her head. They're shameful. The word came out quieter, as if she herself wasn't so sure anymore. Weakness. Naruto's heart squeezed as he realized how much she must have been holding in. Anissa always wore a mask of brash confidence, quick with a cruel quip or a dismissive sneer. To see her disturbed, even hurt, by another's sorrow was something new. There's no shame in what Polly's feeling, he said gently. Or in what you're feeling, Anissa. At that, she rounded on him, eyes flashing. And what exactly do you think I'm feeling? She snapped. The defensive anger in her voice didn't hide the glimmer of wetness in her dark eyes. You think I'm upset? That I pity her? I barely know that woman. She straightened to her full height, crossing her arms like a shield. This is ridiculous. Naruto met her gaze steadily, letting her vent. He recognized the pattern, anger as a cover for pain. He'd done it himself more than once in his youth. Maybe you don't know her, he agreed, but you understand loss. Anyone could see that hit you hard in there. Anissa opened her mouth as if to argue, but no words came. She turned away again, one hand rubbing at her eyes in frustration. DMN it, she muttered, voice thick. I don't even know why it hit me. I barely flinched when my own father died in battle. Why do I care that some woman from another universe is crying over her spawn? Child, he corrected gently. She's lost her daughter, you know. She gnashed her teeth and didn't respond. Naruto stepped closer and spoke softly, you're upset, you have a heart, no matter how much you pretend otherwise. He offered a faint, understanding smile. You care more than you want to admit. She glared at him over her shoulder. Care. I'm a soldier of the Viltrum Empire, Uzumaki. I'm not some weak-kneed earthling ruled by my emotions. The words rang hollow, and they both knew it. After a beat, she let out a slow, unsteady breath. At least I wasn't. Her gaze fell to her hands, fingers curling and uncurling as if she didn't know what to do with them. In a small voice, she added, "Everything's changed. I've changed, and I don't know what to do about it." He could think of a few things, none of which he dared say aloud. "That smiling, sinister version of yourself," she said suddenly, surprising him. "He claimed to have killed me in his world. Without thought. Without hesitation. Without remorse. Such is what a warrior should be. Cold and pragmatic. Ruthless and unfeeling. Unfettered by such sentiment. Something wet dripped down onto the rooftop. Was that a... Naruto felt a swell of empathy. Carefully, he reached out and placed a hand on Anissa's shoulder. She tensed at the contact but didn't pull away. "You've been through a lot recently," he said. He thought of the upheavals she'd faced, discovering truths about Nolan perhaps, witnessing his family fight with such fierce love, even possibly questioning her mission here on Earth. It's okay to feel conflicted. It means you're thinking for yourself, not just doing what you were taught. She closed her eyes, another tear slipping free before she hurriedly brushed it away. When she spoke, her tone was laced with bitterness at herself, not him. "You don't understand. If I start caring, if I start sympathizing with humans, with anyone, it could make me hesitate when the time comes." Her voice dropped. "Hesitation gets you killed. Or worse." Naruto's grip on her shoulder firmed, preventing her from bolting. "That's what your people taught you. Let me tell you what I've learned, caring about others is not a weakness." He thought of all the battles he survived because he had people to protect, not despite it. "My empathy, my connections, they make me stronger. They give me something to fight for, to live for." Anissa finally looked directly at him, her eyes searching his. "How do I reconcile that with who I'm supposed to be?" she whispered. "I was sent here to do a job. To prepare this planet for subjugation." It was the first time she'd openly admitted that to Naruto, and it hung in the air like a dark cloud between them. "If I fail my duty, if I falter, I betray the Empire. But after all I've seen with you, with your family, I'm not sure I can just follow orders anymore." Her voice cracked, anger and despair mingling. "I hate this. I hate feeling weak." She gripped her right wrist and squeezed, he heard the bones in her arm creak audibly. Would she tear off her own arm in a fit of anger? Hopefully not, but he wouldn't chance it. Naruto stepped in front of her, gently turning her by the shoulders to face him fully. "Look at me, Anissa." She reluctantly met his eyes as he spoke. "You're not weak. Far from it. It takes strength to question what you've always been told, to feel and still stand your ground." His tone was earnest, each word deliberate. "Tonight, you saw that even doing something good can have pain. And it scared you. I get that. But you didn't turn away because you're weak, you turned away because you care. Because you have a conscience. And that makes you stronger than any cold-hearted conqueror." She swallowed hard. "Stronger? It doesn't feel that way." He offered a small smile, bittersweet in its sorrow. "Feelings rarely do at first. Give it time." He let his hands fall from her shoulders, leaving only a comforting presence behind. "I know you, Anissa. You're one of the toughest people I've met. You could probably punch straight through this building if you wanted." That earned him the faintest ghost of a smirk on her lips. But true strength isn't just muscle and power. It's also heart. And you've got that, even if you've tried to bury it. Anissa looked down, her short hair casting shadows over her eyes. Naruto could sense the war inside her easing, just a fraction. "Back in there," she said softly, "when Polly started crying I wanted to leave, yes. But a part of me wanted to do something. Anything to stop that pain." She shook her head restlessly, grumbling under her breath. "And I realized I didn't know how. I don't know how to comfort someone like that. Not without feeling lost." Was this the breakthrough he'd been after? Possibly. He didn't dare say it aloud. Instead, he nodded. None of us really know, honestly. There's no easy fix for that kind of pain. Pivoting away from her, he leaned against the ledge, looking up at the stars. All we can do is be there for each other. Let them know they're not alone in it. Sometimes that's enough. He glanced back at her. You being there, even if you didn't say a word that mattered. She let out a slow breath, steadying herself. Perhaps. Silence fell between them again, but it was less strained now, more contemplative. Anissa uncrossed her arms. She looked at him with an expression that might have been gratitude. Thank you for coming after me, she said stiffly, unused to voicing such sentiments. I'd prefer you keep this between us. She gestured vaguely at her face, indicating the tears she tried to hide. If Thrag or the others ever learned Naruto held up a hand and smiled kindly. This stays between us, he promised. He mimed zipping his lips. Besides, I doubt anyone in there was in any state to notice you leaving, except maybe Levi. And he's got his own problems. At the mention of Angstrom, Anissa snorted softly and rolled her eyes. That little worm sees everything, I swear. The tension in her posture had loosened, replaced by her familiar sardonic edge though gentler now. She inhaled deeply, seeming to draw strength from the crisp night air. I just needed air. I'm fine. It wasn't entirely true, but Naruto didn't call her on it. All right, he replied easily. He leaned out over the ledge slightly, peering down. Not thinking of taking off on me, are you? A wry note entered his voice. I can keep up, you know. Anissa managed a chuckle quiet and brief, but real. Humph. You're welcome to try. She glanced at him, and this time her eyes held something softer. But no. I won't run. She squared her shoulders, as if bracing herself. We should get back. I left in a hurry. Naruto understood, she had bolted because she felt overwhelmed, and maybe now she felt a twinge of guilt for abandoning the others. They'll understand, he assured. He gestured toward the door. Whenever you're ready. Anissa nodded. Together, they walked back toward the stairwell. Just before heading inside, she paused and put a hand on Naruto's arm. He looked back, and she opened her mouth to speak, then hesitated. Finally, she said in a low tone, your family, you really think that's what gives you strength? Loving them like that? He saw the CHK in her metaphorical armor. It took everything he had not to whoop with joy. Breakthrough successful. Naruto smiled warmly, thinking of Polly, Eve, and all the others waiting below. I know it is. They're my reason for everything. He met Anissa's gaze. You'll find your reason too. Something or someone that makes it all worth it. For a fleeting second, a distant look crossed Anissa's face, as if a memory or thought stirred. He wondered if she would speak on it. Instead she simply replied, maybe. He acted without think and looped an arm around Anissa's waist, drawing her closer. The Viltrumite warrior tensed again, this time for an altogether different reason. He knew what she was expecting, saw the flash of raw hunger in her eyes as she leaned into him only for him to deliver a quick peck on her cheek. It'll be all right, you know. Anissa blinked. And drew back, briefly befuddled. I do not understand. Why kiss my face instead of my lips? Is this an Earth custom? Naruto laughed. You'll understand someday. She latched onto him with a growl, grabbing him by the waist. I wish to understand now. Nope, he broke her hold easily and took 3 steps back, quietly reveling in her gobsmacked expression at being denied. Not with the kids around. She sashayed after him, peach swinging. They won't hear us. Naruto crossed both arms before his chest. No means no. Anissa pouted. Can I least touch you? I'll allow it. Huffing, she reached out to cling onto him again, but gentler this time, pushing her head into his shoulder. He sighed, bemused by her behavior. She mumbled something else just then, 3 little words spoken so quickly, so softly, he almost didn't hear them with her lips muffled into his costume. Why, it almost sounded like. His eyes widened ever so slightly. This time, he made no effort to escape. With that, the two stepped back inside, leaving the cool starlight behind. The heavy door swung shut, and in the darkness above, the wind carried on, indifferent and free. Neither of them noticed the faint streak of light far in the sky, growing brighter by the second, not yet. Pride and fear made for a heady combination. Nolan Grayson was currently experiencing both as he stood in the backyard of his suburban home, arms folded, watching his son with a practiced, encouraging smile. Night had long since fallen once more, and the quiet chirp of crickets underscored the hush of the neighborhood. Under the cone of a single porch light, Mark was attempting to hover a few feet off the ground. The teenage boy's face was scrunched in concentration, tongue peeking out one corner of his mouth as he focused. "Easy does it," Nolan called softly. "Remember, control comes from the core. Feel the push, don't force it." Outwardly, his tone was patient and warm, the perfect picture of a proud father coaching his son. "Careful, now." Mark wobbled in the air, his sneakers a foot above the grass. He grinned widely. "I think I've got it," he began, but the moment of balance broke. With a yelp, he tipped sideways. Nolan blurred forward and caught his son under the arms just before the boy could faceplant into the lawn. Mark laughed breathlessly as his feet found ground. "Heh, maybe not quite got it." He looked up at his father, eyes shining with excitement even in failure. "But did you see that? I was floating, Dad." Nolan chuckled, releasing him. "I saw. Not bad for your first night." He gave Mark an affectionate clap on the shoulder. "You're doing great, son." Inside, Nolan's heart squeezed painfully. Mark's enthusiasm was infectious and devastating all at once. He has no idea what's ahead of him, Nolan thought, the proud smile on his face never faltering. No idea what being like me truly means. That felt so cool, Mark went on, animated. He was practically bouncing on his heels. "I mean, I actually flew. Kinda. A little wobbly, but still." He paused, tilting his head curiously. "How old were you when you first flew?" Nolan forced himself to focus. "Me? Oh, much younger," he said with a light laugh. Viltrumite kids usually start displaying powers even before adolescence. "You, took a little longer." Nowhere near as long as he would have liked. He ruffled Mark's hair. "But that's perfectly fine. Everyone develops at their own pace." Mark nodded, accepting his words with the implicit trust only a child could possess. He gazed upward at the starry sky. "I can't wait to actually soar through the clouds like you do." His voice turned a bit wistful. "To really join you out there." Nolan felt something twist in his gut again. Join him if only it could be that simple. He pictured Mark flying at his side as a true Viltrumite, father and son conquering the skies. A dream he'd once nurtured. But now after living on Earth for so long, after coming to love this planet and its people, he realized with a quiet dread that Mark's journey would not be one of simple joy. If he joins me in what I truly am, I will lead him into horror. Treasonous thoughts. Weakness. Sentiment. The Grand Regent would not approve. Pushing those disturbing thoughts aside, Nolan kept his expression bright. "You'll be soaring in no time," he said confidently. "We'll practice a bit every day. Before you know it, you'll be faster than sound." He mimed a jet shooting off, eliciting a grin from Mark. They walked back toward the porch together. The night air was cool, smelling of dew and the faint smoke from a barbecue somewhere down the street. Mark was rambling happily about how he'd shown up Todd, a school bully, earlier that day, accidentally throwing a baseball into orbit when his strength manifested. Nolan responded where appropriate, chuckling at the right moments, offering a mild scold that Mark should be careful with his strength around normal people, but his mind was only half on the conversation. In truth, Nolan's thoughts were drifting, heavy with worry. He had dreaded this day for years, the day Mark's Viltrumite powers would awaken. He remembered telling himself maybe it won't happen. Maybe Mark would be ordinary, human, and spared the burden Nolan himself carried. A foolish hope, as it turned out. The reality was undeniable now. Mark was one of his people, gifted with the same abilities. And that meant. Nolan's gaze slipped past Mark to the silhouette of their house, where inside the warm glow of the kitchen window he could see his wife, Debbie, washing up dishes. She glanced outside and offered them a wave. Nolan waved back, still smiling. Debbie's love, Mark's trust, he had them both, for now. But he knew with a crushing certainty that these days were numbered. Once Mark is fully trained, once he's strong. Dad? You okay? Mark's voice broke through Nolan's reverie. The boy was looking at him, brow furrowed in concern. Nolan realized he had fallen silent, staring off. He summoned another reassuring smile. I'm fine, son. Just thinking about how proud I am. He reached out and squeezed Mark's shoulder. Today is a big day. You're becoming who you were meant to be. Mark's face lit up with pride at the praise. He placed his own hand atop his father's. Thanks, Dad. That means a lot. He hesitated, then asked quietly, is Mom okay? I mean with me having powers now. Nolan glanced again at Debbie's figure in the window. She had paused in her chores, drying her hands with a towel as she watched them. She looked happy, if a little apprehensive. Nolan could imagine her worry for their son's safety. An Earth custom. Viltrumite mothers were nowhere near so soft with their spawn. At length, he nodded. She's okay. You know your mother, she'll worry no matter what. He lowered his voice conspiratorially, she made me promise not to drop you from too high up during training. Mark laughed. Oh God. You dropped me once and she'll never let it go. Nolan chuckled, but inside he winced. Earlier that evening, when Mark had begged to start training right away, Nolan had agreed, and perhaps he'd been too rough. In a moment of enthusiasm and testing Mark's resilience, he had thrown Mark a bit higher than intended. Mark had panicked and tumbled, and Nolan caught him, but Debbie had run out shouting up a storm. Nolan had apologized profusely, chiding himself. He was used to training Viltrumite youths in the old ways, sink or swim, tough love. But Mark was different. Half human, raised with tenderness. Nolan had to remind himself to be gentle. They stepped onto the back porch. Through the screen door, Debbie's voice called, how's it going out there, flyboy? Mark grinned and called back, I'm getting the hang of it. He looked at Nolan with youthful determination. One more try, Dad. I think I can hover longer now. His eyes pleaded for another round. Please. Nolan opened his mouth to respond, but Debbie interjected firmly, it's almost midnight, you too. School tomorrow for Mark, work for both of us, let's wrap it up, please. Mark groaned theatrically, but Nolan found himself oddly relieved. Your mom's right, he said. We've done enough for tonight. He patted Mark's back. Go on inside. I'll be right there. Mark gave a good-natured shrug. All right. Thanks for the lesson, Dad. He paused, then stepped forward and, rather awkwardly, gave Nolan a quick hug. Nolan blinked, surprised, before returning it. His son's arms around him felt both wonderful and heartbreaking. I love you, Mark said quietly. For a second, Nolan couldn't speak. He simply held his boy a little tighter. I love you too, son, he managed, voice thick. I always will. No matter what happens. Liar. Mark pulled back, smiling bright enough to melt the darkness, then headed inside, sliding the screen door open. Don't stay out too long, he tossed back to Nolan. Then he disappeared into the house with a bounce in his step, already babbling to Debbie about how he hovered 3 feet high. The door closed, and Nolan was left alone on the porch, the night pressing in. His smile fell away like a mask. In the silence, he could hear his own heartbeat. He turned his face up to the stars that speckled the sky above. How many worlds had he seen under those stars, conquered in the name of Viltrum? Countless. And soon Earth would join them, if not by his hand, then by others. If not willingly, then by force. Mark's powers awakening only heralded that the time was fast approaching. Nolan clenched the wooden porch railing. The cedar board cracked under the pressure of his superhuman grip, splinters digging into his palm. Despair coiled in his chest like a living thing, a hissing serpent poised to strike and bit down, sinking its venomous fangs into all he held dear. He doesn't deserve this, Nolan thought, anguish washing through him. My boy. Mark was good, and kind, and so trusting. Nolan felt sick with guilt at the thought of shattering that innocence. Whether by revealing his own bloody intentions or by refusing and incurring Viltrum's wrath, Mark would be hurt. Either path was a torment, make his son into a conqueror, or watch his son become his enemy. He released the railing and stared at his unmarked hand. He remembered when these hands massacred entire civilizations, how he justified it as a necessary step for the good of the galaxy. He recalled the compromises he had made since coming to Earth, all the BLD and horror, and how he'd kept it secret, coming home that night to kiss his wife with BLD still crusted under his nails. All this he did to pave the way for Mark's future rule, subtly weakening Earth's defenses, all while Cecil and the GDA remained none the wiser. Nothing overt, nothing like ambushing and slaughtering the guardians of the globe, though he contemplated the act many times, but soon he would be forced to act. And now I'd undo it all if I could. Nolan closed his eyes, taking a shuddering breath. If I could spare Mark what's coming. Through the kitchen window, he could see Mark excitedly demonstrating some air punch move to his mother, who laughed and ducked away from the playful swing. They looked so happy. Nolan felt moisture at the corners of his eyes and quickly wiped it away. Viltrumites did not cry, certainly not Nolan Grayson, seasoned warrior. But in this moment, he felt the sting of tears he refused to shed. He forced himself to breathe slowly. In and out. Inhale and exhale. He had to stay in control, for his family's sake. I still have time, he told himself, trying to quell the panic. Mark's training would take months at least, if not years. He was just a boy. The Viltrum Empire wasn't breathing down his neck yet, though Anissa's presence on Earth was a reminder that he was being monitored, due in no small part to his own actions. And there was Naruto Uzumaki and his bizarre family. They complicated everything, but perhaps they also offered a sliver of hope. Naruto was stronger than any being Nolan had ever met. If when the time came, could Naruto protect Mark? The very notion of needing protection from his own people made Nolan feel both hopeful and ashamed. Or could he be turned? The man would do anything for his family. Anything. Would he kill the guardians of the globe? He wasn't on good terms with them these days, barely so with War Woman. More thoughts. More plans. None of which brought him relief. He let out a long sigh and gazed upward once more. Somewhere out there, beyond the stars, his homeworld Viltrum hung silent, its empire spanning galaxies. Once, Nolan had been steadfast in his duty to that empire. Now, the thought of Mark being dragged into that millennia-old war of conquest made him feel hollow. What future awaits you, my son? He thought sorrowfully. Is it one where I am your enemy? Or one where I've damned you to be like me? There was also a third possibility, one he hadn't dared to consider. No. He was no traitor. Neither answer satisfied the gnawing worry in his soul. Nolan realized he was trembling, a microscopic tremor no human eye could detect. He steadied himself and drew up to his full height, assuming the image of strength once more. Taking one last look at the peaceful neighborhood around him, he mustered a determined expression and turned toward the door. Whatever inner turmoil plagued him, he would not let it touch Mark or Debbie tonight. Tonight was a night for celebration, for a boy's dreams coming true. He would not tarnish it with his fears. As he opened the screen door, Nolan cast one final glance at the sky and froze at what he beheld there. A streak of light flared above, high in the atmosphere, bright and fast. For an instant, he thought it a meteor. But his keen Viltrumite vision honed in on the object, sharpening the distant image against the starry backdrop. His blood ran cold. That was no meteor. It was a figure, wreathed in fire from atmospheric entry, rocketing toward Earth's surface with purpose. Nolan's throat went dry. Only a true Viltrumite could descend at such speed and survive unaided. And there was only one Viltrumite he knew who favored that dramatic comet-like entrance. "Thula," he whispered, heart pounding anew. High above the earth, the night sky blazed fiery tears as a burning object tore through the upper atmosphere. What looked to human eyes like a shooting star was in truth a lone warrior making her descent. Thula felt the familiar searing heat licking at her as she breached the atmosphere, a corona of flame encasing her body. It would have incinerated any spacecraft, but to a Viltrumite, it was merely a warm welcome. Her lips curved in a small smile as she plummeted toward the blue planet below. She had traveled far and fast to get here once she'd received Nolan's message. The Viltrum Empire did not tolerate delays or failures, and Nolan's prolonged mission on Earth had raised eyebrows among their ranks. When communications grew spotty and Anissa's reports abruptly ceased, the Empire decided to send a reminder of their reach. Thula had volunteered. Any excuse to put that upstart Anissa in her place, she thought with a touch of malice. And if Nolan Grayson had gone soft, well, she would handle that too. She was no conquest, no battering ram to bring worlds low. Hers was a more surgical touch. She was a knife. As the first wisps of cloud shredded around her, Thula adjusted her trajectory with a subtle shift of her shoulders, quietly reveling in the warmth. This was her favorite part. The descent, that brief moment of freedom when she fist came to a new world and made herself known. The ground rushed up to meet her, a sleeping continent, lights of cities sparkling in the darkness. She narrowed her eyes, scanning rapidly. Her mission was twofold: find Anissa and Nolan, assess the situation, and enforce Viltrum's will as needed. Thula's heart thumped with adrenaline and anticipation. It had been too long since she stretched her muscles on a proper mission. Rumors had reached her ears of unusual happenings on Earth, whispers of some powerful alien influencing Nolan, of battles against foes not of this world. She dismissed most as exaggeration. Still, she remained wary. Never underestimate a backwater planet, she reminded herself, recalling worlds where resistance had surprised them. Breaking the sound barrier with an explosive crack, Thula angled toward a densely populated area rimmed by mountains and sea. California, if she recalled Earth's geography from Nolan's old reports. It was night there, but she could easily spot landmarks from high altitude. Her enhanced eyes caught the glint of a large dome structure that matched the description of the Global Defense Agency's West Coast facility. If Nolan was dealing with any trouble, the GDA would likely know. She decided on a dramatic entrance. Fear was merely another tool in her arsenal, after all, albeit a useful one. Her mind made up, Thula accelerated, becoming a brilliant comet of fire and lightning. Below, late-night onlookers in the city of San Francisco would gasp at the sudden streak across the sky, some reaching for phones to record what they thought was a meteor. The air around her howled, a sonic boom rippled out in her wake, rattling windows for miles. Moments later, she slammed down from the heavens onto the front lawn of the GDA complex. The impact was earth-shaking, literally, a thunderous boom that cracked pavement and sent a plume of dust and soil erupting upward. The shockwave shuddered through the building. Car alarms blared in the distance as Thula straightened from her three-point landing, brushing bits of concrete from her knee. She stood tall in the settling dust, her Viltrumite uniform practically untouched by the fiery descent. She tilted her head, allowing her long braid to uncoil from the back of her head, bestowed with her favorite hunting knife at the end. With a slow, deliberate motion, Thula slid off the breathing apparatus she'd used for high-altitude travel and clipped it to her belt. From there, she took her first breath of Earth's air and subsequently sneered. Thin, weak but breathable. Alarms began to wail within the facility, red lights flashing. Thula's keen hearing picked up shouted orders and frantic activity from inside. Soldiers' human security were scrambling. She almost felt pity. What did they think they could do to her? The front floodlights burst on, bathing her in harsh white. Thula raised a hand to shield her eyes, more annoyed than blinded. A muffled voice boomed through a loudspeaker, "This is a secured facility. Identify yourself." In response, Thula planted her feet, crossed both arms before her chest and let out a booming voice of her own, loud enough to rattle the glass in the guard booths, "I am Thula of Viltrum." Her words echoed across the courtyard. With a single powerful stride, she loosened her limbs as she approached the fortified main entrance. Under her breath she added, "And you're in my way." A squad of GDA security personnel in tactical armor poured out from a side door, energy rifles raised uncertainly. They fanned out, trying to surround her. Thula's lip curled in disdain. She didn't break stride. One particularly bold agent fired a warning shot, a bright blue plasma bolt, that splashed against Thula's chest and dissipated, singing the fabric but leaving her unharmed. Thula arched an eyebrow. "Warned you," she muttered. In a blink, she lunged. A single snap kick sent the nearest armored truck flipping end over end like a toy, crashing into the parking lot. The men opened fire in a panicked volley, dozens of energy blasts converged on Thula. She moved through them like a specter, the bolts hardly slowing her. With precise, efficient strikes, she tore the weapons from their hands and sent the soldiers scattering with bruises and broken pride. She was careful not to kill. Emperor Thrag's orders were to minimize needless casualties. A dead planet was worth nothing, but a few cracked ribs would send the message. Within seconds, the squad lay disarmed and groaning on the ground. Thula stepped over them and grasped the thick steel door of the main entrance. With a screech of tearing metal, she ripped it off its hinges and tossed it aside. Inside the lobby, more agents stared, stunned by the sight of this lone woman breaching their defenses with contemptuous ease. Thula's bright eyes swept the room until they locked onto a figure in a suit at the back, flanked by a few superhero types who must have rushed to respond to the alarm. The suited man, balding, with a distinctive eye patch, was barking into a communicator but fell silent as Thula casually flung aside what remained of the door. She strode forward, boots clicking on the tile now littered with debris. "Director Cecil Stedman, I presume," Thula said, recalling the name of the GDA's head on Earth. She smirked at the astonishment on the man's face. "Take me to Nolan Grayson. Now." Behind Cecil, two heroes stepped protectively forward, one, a towering bearded man in gold and blue, the Immortal, if she remembered correctly from intelligence briefings, and the other, a dark-clad woman wielding a rather impressive mace, likely war woman. Of the other defenders, she saw no sign. Were they hiding? Or had she simply arrived before them? No matter. Cecil held up a hand to stop them from attacking outright. His single eye narrowed at Thula. "Thula, is it? Omni-Man didn't say he was expecting company." Thula let out a short, humorless laugh. "Omni-Man? Is that what he calls himself? He doesn't know I'm here yet." She cocked her head. "If he were doing his duty, I wouldn't need to be here." Her tone sharpened like the blade she wielded. "You have something, or someone, interfering with Viltrum's plans. Reports of multidimensional interference, unsanctioned genetic experiments. It ends tonight." She took another step, and Immortal shifted, muscles tensed. Thula barely spared him a glance. "Stand aside, little heroes. My quarrel isn't with you, unless you make it so." Cecil's voice was calm, but a vein in his temple pulsed. "You come into my house and start making demands. You're a guest on this planet, ma'am. Maybe cool off and we can. Arrogance without strength requires correction." In a blur of motion, Thula closed the distance and seized Cecil by the throat. Gasps echoed as War Woman raised her mace and Immortal moved to intervene, but Thula's next words halted everyone. Don't. She held Cecil aloft effortlessly, he gagged, feet dangling. I did not come for diplomacy. I came for results. Now, she lowered him slightly so he could speak, though her grip remained iron. Where is Nolan Grayson? Cecil coughed, wincing at the pressure around his neck. Yet despite the precarious position, he mustered a gravelly retort. You think I'll just tell you, he rasped. Go to hell, lady. Thula sighed, almost disappointed. Humans could be admirably stubborn. A pity, really, if this one weren't so old he might have made a suitable mate. Wrong answer. She drew back her free hand, clenched in a fist. If you have any last words, I will hear them now. Cecil grunted and raised his right hand, middle finger jabbing upward. Thula blinked. I do not understand that gesture. Then how about this one? She didn't see the device in his left hand until it was too late, a trigger of some sort bearing a big orange button. Cecil slammed his thumb down on it. Nothing happened. No fiery explosion, no piercing pain, not even a sound, really. Really? Thula eyed the ineffective device with mild scorn. What was that supposed to accomplish? Did that button even serve a purpose? Belatedly, she noticed the Immortal and War Woman stepping back. Funny you should ask, Cecil granted her a death's head grin, and despite her choking him out, somehow managed to lean down enough to glower at her, alarming her with his feral smile. It's got a fancy name and all, but the techs in have taken to calling it the ramen button. You just made me push it. His forehead pressed against hers. You shouldn't have done that. Wah. She was still speaking when a rush of wind and a blur of gold interposed between her and Cecil. Without hesitation, she moved to end his life. Imagine her surprise then, when she found her powerful punch caught mid-swing by a powerful hand wreathed in golden light. 5 firm fingers squeezed down on the hand holding Cecil, forcing her fingers open with a painful pop, letting the director drop to the floor gasping. In the same instant, clenched knuckles barreled into her face, denting her cheek to fling her away in a heap. Thula recovered quickly, vaulting to her feet intent on finishing what she'd started, only to find her path blocked. Nolan Grayson Omni-Man hovered there, blocking her path, his face a mix of anger and worry. Behind him, Naruto Uzumaki stood with his own fists raised, golden chakra cloaking him in an eerie aura, ready to back Nolan up if needed. Well. Seemed the cavalry had arrived. Thula's eyes flickered in recognition and surprise. Nolan's arrival she expected, but the blonde man at his side radiated an intimidating power that set her instincts on edge. So the rumors of a new player on Earth were true. Curious. She turned her back on Cecil, Immortal and War Woman swiftly pulled him back to safety, but she cared not, she'd already squared off against the interlopers floating to eye level with Nolan and Naruto. A slow smile spread across her face, equal parts challenge and delight. Omni-Man, she greeted, voice dripping with sarcasm as she used his Earth moniker. I was just looking for you. Her gaze slid to Naruto. And you must be the infamous Naruto Uzumaki. I've heard interesting things about you. On a whim, she looked about. I suppose you're the reason for Anissa's absence. When neither answered her, she smirked. Dead, then, is she? Good. I hope it hurt. Oddly enough, they didn't rise to her bait. Curious. Lazily, she tossed her head, whipping up her braid behind her, the blade at the end struck the floor, kicking up sparks behind her. I suppose we're going to fight, then. Naruto's golden eyes narrowed, yet he held his stance, silent and formidable. Ultimately it was Nolan who hovered protectively a half-step ahead of him, fists clenched. Thula, stand down, Nolan warned, trying to sound authoritative, though Thula noticed the slight tremor in his tone as he held out a hand to her. This isn't necessary. We can talk. Thula cut him off with a sharp laugh. Talk. Now you want to talk. You've had years to talk to us, Nolan. Instead, you hide out here playing house and, she gestured vaguely at Naruto, fraternizing with cosmic strays. The Empire is done waiting. She cracked her knuckles, the sound like gunshots in the tense lobby. But by all means, if you want to explain to the great Thrag why Earth isn't under control yet, I'll listen. Nolan's face darkened at the mention of Emperor Thrag. He opened his mouth to reply, only for this Uzumaki to step forward, shouldering his way past him to speak. His voice was calm but firm, rather pleasant to listen to. You don't seem to understand this world isn't under anyone's control, he delivered each word deliberately, his sentence measured. And it's going to stay that way. He looked strong. Ah. She could see now why Anissa had trouble with this one. He must have killed her. Surely she'd been arrogant, and that arrogance had led to her demise. She would not fall into the same trap. Thula arched an eyebrow, regarding Naruto with cold, clinical interest. The air between the three of them crackled with impending conflict. Behind them, alarms blared and frightened GDA agents tended to the injured, watching the standoff in awe. Far above, the night sky swirled with dissipating smoke from Thula's entry. The stage was set, new allies and old loyalties colliding under the harsh fluorescent lights. Multiple worlds, multiple lives, all converging on this moment. Thula could practically smell the turmoil in the air, and it thrilled her. Bold words, she said softly, her fists clenching eagerly. Let's see if you can back them up. She launched herself at Naruto. Thula was fast. Naruto could admit as much freely within the safety of his own mind when he took that first fateful punch head-on. The Viltrumite assassin was faster than Anissa, more agile than Nolan, and downright devilishly quick with that hair blade of hers. Moreover, she possessed a wealth of close combat experience that they both lacked. Which made her something of a tough nut to crack as a result. Not impossible mind you, but tough. Moreover, he had the distinct feeling she was holding back. He could see it there in her swings, feel it in the force of her kicks, either she wasn't truly trying or she wasn't completely committed to this course of action. He suspected the former, yet the latter was also possible. So, in his curiosity, he let her get a hit in. Just to see how much. For fun. Why, he even dared closed his eyes as he rode out the momentum with a smile, utterly uncaring when her clenched knuckles barreled into his cheek, snapped his head to the side, and launched him into the sky in a shower of BLD. Granted, the latter was more from him biting his own cheek than any real damage, nevertheless, he felt the air ripple as she gave chase. Saw the moment in his mind's eye as her blade slashed in at his seemingly exposed throat, ready to open his jugular. Impressive. Most impressive. But she was no Sasuke. Still, she didn't play around, didn't toy with him, went right for the kill like a true Viltrumite. Respectable. Admirable, even, downright cold as ice. He couldn't wait to break through it and shatter her. Was that wrong of him? Maybe. But he hadn't been the one to start this. She'd come here, she'd acted all high and mighty, and now SHE would pay the price. Simple as that. The blade bounced off his neck. Thula hissed in naked surprise and recoiled viscerally before floating back to safety. What? Sorry, when next he opened his eyes they gleamed gold with sage mode, orange dusting the outer lids of his eyes. You'll have to try a little harder than that. Thula stared at him for a long moment and released her weapon, letting the wind tug at her long braid. He watched her knife sway restlessly at the end of it, coiling and twisting in on itself like a serpent ready to pounce. Its MSTRS seemed even less pleased, her eyes were cold, her full lips pursed into a thin line of abject displeasure. Yet when she spoke, there was hardly any emotion to it, only the smallest of scorn. Stop running and fight back, coward. He could, but he wanted to put on a show, if only because he knew Cecil was watching, and the GDA with him, to say nothing of Nolan. More than that, he was angry. He'd helped his sinister self, and for what? The man had his wife back, but he was even more miserable now than before. He'd done a good thing, hadn't he? Kept his word. Helped him. Yet he felt absolutely awful. And now another Viltrumite had come to call, far more troublesome than the last. The perfect outlet to unleash all his frustration on. He was going to enjoy this very much. Inhaling deeply through his nose, he caught the telltale scent of rain on the air. A storm was approaching over the ocean. Big one too, by the sound of it. He could just see it from this high up. Black clouds on the horizon, bridling furiously like his own quietly contained temper. An idea dawned. And then Thula surprised him. "How are you unharmed?" Ah, so she was curious after all. A bit of banter made for an excellent battle, and he wasn't in a hurry to break her just yet. Let everyone watch through their cameras, drones, satellites, or what have you. He intended to make this a show for the ages. Sage mode, hun, he tapped his throat when she continued to glare at him. My skin hardens in response to physical trauma. That little knife of yours won't be breaking through so easily. Oddly enough, his frank admission seemed to impress her. Is it possible to learn such a power? Not for you. He took great pleasure in crossing both arms before his chest and denying her. Technically it was, not that he'd ever make it so. He wasn't about to go burning chakra coils into a Viltrumite anytime soon, fun as that fight might be. He didn't have a death wish. Best to destroy Sinister's machine as soon as he returned. Technology like that wasn't meant for this world and should be erased. And it would be. Just as soon as he killed this Viltrumite. Said assassin scowled, unaware of her impending demise. What are you, then? You're clearly not of this planet, else there would be more of you. Thunder rumbled in the distance as the wind picked up. The storm was drawing closer. Kurama sighed. Go ahead, say the line. I know you want to. He really did. You really want to know? Thula planted a fist against her peach. Do not make me repeat myself, Earthling. Well, that settled it. You really couldn't ask for a better cue than that, so he wouldn't. Grinning, he uncrossed his arms, spread them wide with a grin, and decided to ham it up a little. I am the storm that is approaching. And you? With that pretty little knife of yours? He raised a fist and pointed. You're a living lightning rod, Missy. Her eyes bulged, no doubt realizing his intention, but he didn't give her the chance to react and decked her, launching her into the clouds. Nature didn't disappoint. Call it heaven's wrath, the bolt of Zeus, anything you like. The result was the same. Naruto saw the flash before he heard it, the human silhouette against the clouds in a singular moment of brightness, then the incredible explosion that followed. A smoking human shape tumbled out of the storm and into the choppy sea below. Ripples followed for a moment before they too were swept away with the waves. She did not emerge from the water. The rest of the storm reached him a moment later, wind and rain lashing against his face as heaven and sea alike churned, bridling furiously. He smiled into the storm, as he hadn't a single speck of metal on him. He was quite well, not safe. Lightning could still strike him if he wasn't careful, but he was prepared to deflect anything that came his way. Viltrumites didn't have that courtesy. Thula certainly hadn't. She'd been down there for a while now. Naruto leaned forward into the wind, squinting against the rain. Think that killed her? With our luck. A moment of silence passed. He kept his gaze focused on churning sea. There. He thought he saw a shadow in the water. The sea boiled. And then. Uzumaki. He caught the flying punch that followed, wrenched her arm over her shoulder and tossed her into the air. Thula was on him in an instant, driving her blade down between his eyes. He caught her wrist in hand and held her back with a grin. Only then did he see her sorry state. The enraged Viltrumite was simultaneously soaked and singed, but still very much alive, uniform burned and charred in places, braid somehow still intact despite the devastating shock she'd received. He supposed it would be too much to kill her. She loomed over him, bracing her knife with both hands, doing her best to drive it into an eye. I will skin you alive and wear your hide as a cloak. Promises, promises. Naruto slammed a knee into her torso, winding her. The grip on her blade slackened, but didn't break. 2 more kicks followed the first, each harder than the last. Finally she couldn't take it anymore, she faltered, and the moment she did, he surged forward, let the blade scrape across his cheek and grabbed her by the face. She bit him. Annoyed, he pivoted in the air and tossed her back toward shore. Only then did he realize his mistake. Civilians. Thula's backside struck a sandy shoal with all the force of a small bomb, the shockwave of which sent a score of hapless beachgoers flying into the air. Naruto caught each in the time it took a human to blink, swept them away to safety via a swarm of shadow clones, and dove on the stunned warrior before she could recover, decimating her defenses. Kidney punch. Target the liver. Surgical strikes. Credit where it was due, she gave as good as she got. She was sturdy, fighting back without so much as a whimper of pain. Weaving left around a jab, then right, he clasped both hands behind his back and taunted her to draw her away, giving ground and forcing her to chase him further down the B from the irritating innocence. She couldn't catch him. He had seen faster, fought stronger, and experienced for worse. All she had was her fists and feet, and that pesky knife of hers. Grit perhaps, but grit could only carry you so far. Thula lunged and he swayed past, snagged her by the braid and yanked her in to smirk at her. Is that all? She could have slashed her braid and freed herself, but she didn't. Too arrogant. Too proud. Too fond of her hair. She spat in his face, surprising him. He recoiled, briefly taken aback by the gesture, and she took full advantage to latch onto him for all she was worth. From there she twisted around his shoulder, writhing up and over him to lock both legs around his back, simultaneously trapping his arms to his sides with her thighs. It left her clinging onto his back like some demented monkey, so much so that he couldn't help but laugh. Congratulations, he rolled his eyes. You've trapped me. Now whack. Before he could ask what she hoped to accomplish, Thula looped her long braid around his neck and yanked, drawing it taut across his throat. For the first time since their brawl began, a grimace twisted his face. His world darkened at the corners, shadows creeping into his vision. You may be strong, she hissed, but you need to breathe. How long can you last? His fingers twitched at his sides. Longer than you. He vanished in her grasp with a quick substitution jutsu, swapping himself out with an upturned tree stump. Thula balked and realized her peril too late. She was clinging to so much dead weight, her braid wrapped around an essentially useless log. By the time she'd realized it, he was already on her. Left, right, left again, he hammered her exposed back, powering her forward into the sand. She threw the stump at him as she fell and batted it away with a hand, stomping on her ankle to prevent her escape. Here at last, she faltered. One must never, ever falter in a fight. She snarled, surged upright, and threw a panicked punch. Nolan watched them wage war from the sky, silent as the grave. He knew he should interfere at the very least. On whose side? That was the question, wasn't it? When he first sent that message, he had never once anticipated that it might come to this. Anissa had it been easily coaxed, cajoled in the right direction, even predictable. It had been simple to point her at Naruto like an earth missile and unleash her. Fire and forget, as they say. Thula was nowhere near as simple. Unlike the infamous conquest, she was no mad dog reveling in BLD on her teeth. She knew what she wanted. Once she finished with Naruto, if she finished him she would come for him. Would she bend or would she break? He knew the answer. Naruto caught her fist. Thula had half a second to balk as her hand smacked into an open palm, then another to hiss in pain as he twisted her wrist, forcing her to a knee. Agony coursed through her arm, but she refused to speak, refused to cry out. She would not give him satisfaction. She refused. His eerie bright eyes gleamed over the knuckles of her fist. As she looked on, they slowly blazed red, then blue, the gold all over again, a whirl of constantly shifting colors that she couldn't comprehend. What were they? What did they mean? She didn't know. She didn't want to know. Look, lady, if that's the best you can do, this is not going to end well for you. That gregarious golden gaze gleamed back at her. Crinkled now as he smiled. His left fist flickered, little more than a blur of motion. And then, quite suddenly, her world inverted. Simply put, down became up. Naruto was waiting for her in the upper atmosphere. Fast. Her eyes bulged as she tried to arrest her momentum, but it was too late. A fist swung back with intent, she saw stars. Felt the fire of her re-entry. Tasted mud. Ordinarily she adored descending to a planet, the fiery freedom it offered. This was not that. She struck the ground and the ground exploded in a wash of fire and flame, scorching her skin. Mercifully, she didn't black out. She almost wished she had, and thus was given a split second to experience humiliation, and another to glance about her surroundings. Some dense heavily forested area she didn't recognize, now badly burnt and very much on fire from her crash landing. A shadow fell over her. Shame coursed through her as she dragged herself upright on bent knee. Kneeling already, those whiskered cheeks dimpled in a smug smile. And here I thought your kind didn't kneel. Anger. He closed the distance between them in an instant and she whipped her knife at him in a blind fury. He caught it in his fist. Then squeezed. It shattered in his grasp. Gone in an instant. A stray shard flickered back her way and struck her right eye. Half her vision went dark forevermore. Pain. Agony. Fire in her face. Thula crumpled with a scream, clutching her ruined visage. That brief moment of inattention cost her dearly. Most dearly indeed. Naruto seized her by the throat, slammed her down into the ground. Pinned her beneath him, pressing her back into the scorched earth as she'd once seen conquest due to a poor bstrd on some backwater planet whose name she no longer remembered. Panic gave her limbs fresh strength and she lashed out, desperate to free herself. He caught her fist and squeezed, shattering her fingers in a mass of red and bone. The pain was so much worse than the wound in her face, but it didn't stop her. She refused to let it. Undaunted, she struck out with the other, only for him to catch her wrist with his teeth. Sharpened fangs sank into her flesh and she had an instant of awful, terribly realization before he turned his head aside with a twist and an ugly tearing sound filled her ears. In an instant, she was left balking at a ragged stump. Naruto spat it out, disgusted, and wiped the blood from his lips with his free hand. So uncivilized, he muttered under his breath. I'll be washing my mouth out for days. Both arms ruined, Thula flailed at him, to no avail, legs kicking wildly under him, all for naught. In retaliation, he placed his free hand on her throat and redoubled his grip until she saw stars. This was it, then. She was going to die. Her eyes rolled back. Abruptly, though the pressure eared. Naruto leaned down. His lips brushed the outer lobe of her right ear. How does it feel, Thula? Her blood froze in her very veins, colder than ice. No. How does it feel to be helpless? No, no. How does it feel to know pain? No, no, no. The bstrd was pulling a conquest on her. DMN him. She gurgled angrily and slammed her ruined arm into his chest, the one that still had fingers. Her mangled digits bent and broke further, spattering his costume with fresh blood, all the while he remained undaunted. He did not bend. He didn't break. But she did. How many have you watched die in horror? He asked, crying for mercy in vain. Tears sprang to the corners of her good eye. Look what you turned me into. They didn't faze him at all. See what I've become. Dread clawed at her, deep and dark and deadly. Wild and primal. This should not be. This couldn't be. It mustn't be. And yet it was happening, here, now, this very moment. How is this possible? She tried to gulp, but he wouldn't even let her do that. I'm a Viltrumite. I was born stronger than anyone on this miserable mudball of a planet. I stand above these wretched creatures. With every success I grow stronger. I'm supposed to win. Naruto glared down at her. I am. Red eyes filled her vision. Supposed to. He bared his teeth in a savage snarl. Something came loose deep inside Thula. Run, her mind bleated. Run away. In order to survive I need to run and get as far away as I can. Away. But he wouldn't let her. His grip was inexorable, crushing. Darkness swept in. Until Uzumaki yanked her back out of once more. No, you don't, he shook his head. You don't get to go that easily. Torture, then. Her worst fear, primary above all overs. It was too much, she didn't want to die. Thula broke. Tears ran down her cheeks, bloody and watery. Mercy. Mercy. He glared down at her. You ask me for mercy? After everything your kind has done? She pawed at him with her ruined arms, good eyes stinging even as the other wept bloody tears. Please, I don't want to die. He tripled his grip, rendering her words a pained croak. You should. She wept openly. I yield Mstr. He headbutted her, leaving her seeing stars. You think 3 little words will fix this? And no. Another headbutt. She tried to fend him off. A third headbutt broke her nose. Please, she all but wailed the word. Spare me. I'll serve you. Yet a fourth came crashing down. What else did she have to offer? Her body. Would he even accept such an offer? She didn't know. Was this how her victims felt before she killed them? Wasted and gasping for air. Begging for mercy that would never come. She didn't like it, it was an ugly revelation. She'd always thought herself above it. Superior. But she wasn't, was she? In the end, she was no better than them. Just another victim in the mud. Naruto reared back, face dripping blood, and took one hand from her throat. Any hope she might have felt in that moment died an ugly death as he clenched his fingers into his claw. A spiraling blue sphere ignited in his free palm. In an instant, Thula knew its intent, he was going to bring it crashing down on her head. He moved. Rasengan. A hand caught his wrist, stopping him short. Naruto absolutely hissed at the responsible party. Let go. I will do no such thing. A shadow fell over them both. Thula couldn't see its owner in the sun. Her vision was far too blurry now in any case. But she could hear her voice, oh so familiar. This isn't you, Naruto. She knew that voice. Anissa. Wasn't she dead? Sure enough, it was her. Her hated rival looked softer. Gentler. Naruto was not, he snapped at her in his rage. She deserves to die. Perhaps, the not dead woman allowed, or perhaps she can yet change her ways. He scoffed. Like you. Something inscrutable flashed across her face, yes, like me. That's not the same thing. Naruto protested sullenly. You're different. She didn't let go. I was made so by your mercy. Anissa. They said more words, argued, but Thula didn't hear them. Couldn't. Her vision swam. Her ears were ringing. With a sigh, her body finally slipped into sleep. This time, when the darkness came, Thula dove into it. Cecil Stedman considered himself a pragmatic man. Not an evil man, but not a good man either. Pragmatic. He hadn't always been so, mind you, there was a time, once, long ago, when he'd been a reckless Inovovich with a hidebound moral code. Good was good. Evil was evil. Black and white. That sort of thing. He'd paid the price for that, a chemical bath every day just to keep his skin from sloughing off his body. But he learned. Turns out the world wasn't black and white. It was gray. Every sort of shade. Sometimes bad people did good things. Other times the good guys had to do some DMN dirty stuff to keep the peace. Hell, he'd be the first to admit that he did bad things for good reasons. Somebody had to keep the earth safe. Who else was going to? The police? The military? Ha! No disrespect to the boys in blue and beyond, but they simply weren't equipped to handle threats of a super nature. Seemed like there was a disaster every other week these days, even more so since a certain braying blonde BSTRD bounced back into his life. Try saying that 5 times fast. He dared you. Still, he had a code. Rules. When he was at fault, he owed it. And he always prepared. Always. For instance, when a PND of flesh was demanded of him by Fire Shadow, aka Naruto, in recompense for an incident that technically, damn it Erickson, happened under his watch, he could have sacrificed a hand or an eye. Instead he'd taken both an eye and a hand. Overkill, right? Wrong. As of now, Naruto only knew about the eye. Cecil's shiny new metal hand, coated in a rather convincing layer of false skin, was quite literally an ace up his sleeve, equipped with a rather nasty surprise should said blonde go rogue. Probably wouldn't stop Naruto, but it would startle him and more importantly, it'd hurt like hell and give Cecil a chance to escape. And speaking of escape. With a long-suffering sigh, he turned his gaze back to the metal coffin before him. Then again, perhaps it wasn't a coffin at all, given it currently contained a Viltrumite of the living persuasion. Against all odds, Thula had survived her injuries. Now the brutal bee was sleeping fitfully after her ordeal, racked by nightmares, her entire body contained in countless layers of heavy steel, leaving only her battered visage exposed. Apparently these arrogant aliens couldn't shoot lasers from their eyes, yet, so leaving her face visible wasn't a risk. They had her completely contained. Well, what was left of her? Naruto had beaten her, broken her, refused to heal her, taken one look at the woman's restraints with that Anissa of his and promptly doubled them for good measure. Chakra chains were a thing. Who knew? Not him. The kid had sacrificed some of his strength and focus to keep her contained, but Cecil considered that a fair trade given the havoc she'd wrought. Against all odds, no lives had been lost during the attack, and miracle of miracles, the GDA were being lauded as heroes thanks to Naruto's timely reaction. Score 1 for the good guys. Nolan may have gone dark since the attack and Anissa was loyal only to the kid, but this Thula would be a goldmine on her people. The things they could learn. Provided she awoke with her mind intact, of course. Big if, that. He cracked open another can of beer and drank deeply, savoring the burn down his throat as he swallowed. It centered him. Helped him focus. A can a day kept the doctor away and all that. Or maybe that wasn't the saying, but DMN, he needed a drink right now. How's she doing? Another can cracked open beside him, courtesy of Naruto, currently stood beside him, watching Thula like a hawk. How do you think she's doing? Fair enough, he spared him a sidelong glance with his good eye. How much of that little crash out of yours was real? Naruto didn't answer, he didn't have to, they both knew the truth. Cecil continued on, unabated. You were toying with little Miss Ice Queen over there for a good portion of that fight, then you suddenly went psycho. Why? Still no response. He found the answer on his own. You were trying to scare her, weren't you? Naruto cracked a smile and another can besides. Do or do not, there is no try. That old saying. Cecil rolled his good eye in exasperation. Whatever you say, Yoda. Dealing with a galaxy far, far away would have been cake compared to this. Give him Jedi and Sith any day. Good and evil. At least those BSTRDS made sense. You saw all of that, did you? Naruto sounded smug as he had another beer. Could he even get drunk? Cecil scoffed. Were you putting on a show for me? Whatever will I tell Polly? They shared a rare laugh between them, just like the old days. Now it was Naruto's turn to roll his eyes. Not just you. Nolan, then. He'd not heard a peep from Omni-Man after Thula's incursion. Oh, he was still around, mind you, still on Earth, still saving people, but he hadn't checked in. To be expected, he supposed. The man was seriously conflicted. Confronting him might send him over the edge, and on the wrong side at that. Best give him a breather for now. He'd put the Guardians on high alert regardless, though he'd not told them why. Wouldn't do for them to be ambushed now, would it? And while they were on the topic of ambushes. So, he began, apropos of nothing, when were you going to tell me about your new friend? Naruto didn't answer. Kid. I wasn't, he said at length. Because I have it handled. Do you? We've got another you running around. How is that handled? Because I gave him what he wanted, came the answer, his eyes never once leaving Thula's prone form. He has no reason to stay here. He'll be gone by the morning. And if he isn't? His eyes blazed. He will be. But if he won't go? I'll handle it. Cecil longed to say more, wanted to argue, but one look at Naruto's face warned him against such. I'll take your word for it. One blonde BSTRD was hard enough to handle. Earth didn't need two. Or heaven forbid, three. Multiverse theory really was AB, wasn't it? The idea that there might be other universes out there, and boundless. Trouble lurking within, wasn't a pleasant notion. One Earth was plenty, more than enough for him. He didn't want more, didn't seek more, didn't need more. Let another Cecil, assuming he wasn't the only one, worry about the multiverse. He was admittedly curious to see what any of his other selves were like, but he didn't want them coming here. I have a book you might be interested in. Cecil glanced Naruto's way, nonplussed. What now? A book. The ghost of a smile touched the corner of Naruto's mouth as he quietly disposed of what just might be his umpteenth can of beer. You'll find it useful, once I'm done breaking it in. And the contents of said book? Here at last, Naruto looked away from Thula, perhaps finally deciding she wouldn't wake from her restless slumber anytime soon. Records of another universe that other me went through. He's identified possible threats and allies. Most of which are the same in this universe. A slippery slope, but one he was prepared to climb if need be. Don't suppose you have said book on you? Stored in a secure location. Meaning there was no way of accessing it save through him. Cheeky prick. Still, a goldmine like that. This book of yours might be helpful. Those icy blue eyes narrowed upon him. It will be, provided we don't abuse it. There it was, the warning. Relax, Cecil clapped him on the back. I'm not out to meet my counterparts, let alone conquer other realities. I have trouble enough managing this one. I've noticed. There it was, another dig at his capabilities. He couldn't even blame him, to use a sports analogy, the GDA hadn't just dropped the ball, they'd outright fumbled it just shy of the end zone and tripped over themselves as the other team summarily run it back for a touchdown. In short, they F up. Naruto didn't seem keen to let him forget anytime soon. I've already tasked some clones with hunting down leads like Machine Head and Dinosaurus, his erstwhile ally continued. If Sinister's notes prove legitimate, I'll share the rest of the notebook with you. Cooperation. He could work with that. Sinister, though. That's what he calls himself. Seems someone's a fan of the X-Men. Naruto barked a laugh. Don't look at me, I think it's an awful name. On that at least, we agree. They shared a rare moment of silence and resumed their stoic vigil, watching the techs fuss over Thula. She was still mumbling in her sleep. Whimpering. Her body might be bound, but her head shifted this way and that, her once appealing face twisting in some silent terror. You really scared the daylights out of her, didn't you? Naruto tossed his spent can in the bin and cracked open another. It was answer enough. I'm not condemning you, if anything, I approve. We're all evil to someone, Cecil sighed at length. You're a hero to your friends and family, to this country, but I guarantee there's somebody out there worse than her. Anissa implied as much. Cecil quirked a brow. Converted her, have you? Here at last, Naruto flushed, a rare thing indeed. Maybe. That's good. We need all the allies we can get. She say anything about this invasion Thula happened to mention? Only that we're not ready for it. I think she's been out of the loop too long. Things have changed. Cecil downed his own can, grimacing at the taste. Might have to ask the source, then. Naruto looked back to Thula, smile fading. You want me to heal her? I do. But it's more than that, isn't it? He growled. You want me to take her? I'd appreciate it. We can hold her down here, but I'm not sure for how long, least of all if she panics and decides to break out. Nolan's gone radio silent, Anissa answers to you and the Guardians. He waffled a hand. Are you saying they're compromised? No, only that they're not equipped to handle Viltrumites. You are. Akin crumpled in the blonde's grasp, thankfully an empty one. He didn't much like the idea of bathing in beer. Then tell them to step up their training, damn it. That'll take weeks, if not months, he snapped back, daring to raise his voice before lowering it once more. Maybe years, even. This Viltrumite empire could arrive at any time. You're one of only 3 people on this planet currently equipped to stop it. I know another guy, but he's off planet. No way of reaching him. The blonde dragged a hand down his whiskered face. You don't know what you're asking me. I do, and I'm sorry for it. He really was. Anissa sounded like a handful already. Converting Thula shouldn't be hard, she's already scared shitless of you. Tell her you changed your mind. Accept her into your service. Naruto didn't answer. Well. Cecil quirked a brow at him and gestured to the contained Thula below. Unless you don't think you can do it. There it was, one of Naruto's few weaknesses. Hit him in the pride. Imply that he wasn't capable of something. Naruto lived to prove people wrong. It was a character flaw, but admittedly a good one. He'd do the rest. Sure enough, his right eye twitched. Bold words for someone within punching distance. See, now you're resorting to threats. Can you do it or not? Naruto passed an unopened can of beer off to him. Hold my beer. I'll even sweeten the pot for you. Here. Cecil's handed him a slip of paper. You might like this. I had planned to give it to you today, before our little incursion. Naruto paused. Squinted at the rough scrawl written therein. This is an address. Cecil nodded once. It is. An old friend of mine dug up a lead on the Poly project. And just like that, he had his full, undivided attention. Name? Radcliffe. Cecil took a wary step back as the note burst into flames in the blonde's grasp and crumbled to ash. He was connected to Project Poly. Worked closely with Erickson, he's gone into hiding, but he's not half as clever as he thinks. Green Ghost was able to find him. He's got a facility up in the mountains. You might want to thank her, she risked a lot bringing this to me. Then I owe her dinner. Naturally, Cecil wasn't willing to let it go there. As for Erickson. Naruto scowled, a look that promised death to his enemies, dead and dusted. I fed him his heart and killed him myself. There's no coming back from that. Just be careful out there. He couldn't emphasize that last part enough, not where an associate of Radcliffe was concerned. That slippery bstrd always had a contingency plan or two, even back when we worked together. You could have killed a clone for all you know. If he's still out there somewhere, then I'll kill him again. Over and over. As many times as it takes, and anyone else who threatens my family. Ominous. Startin' to sound like Nolan again. Am I, now? A bleak look was his reward. Maybe he has a point. Dead things should stay dead. Cecil sighed and reached over for another can. You gonna get this bstrd, or have another drink? When he looked back, Naruto was already long gone. The older man couldn't quite contain a shiver. Hate it when he does that. Sinister met him halfway to the facility. In truth, Naruto wasn't at all surprised his darker counterpart hunted him down. He had a feeling his older self would want a word with him before he returned. One last hurrah, then back to his barren shell of a world to live out the rest of his days with his newly resurrected wife. Whether that would be a fight or a talk, well, that remained to be seen. Regardless, he looked up into the sky with a sigh, annoyed to find his counterpart hovering there, cape swaying in the wintry breeze. He'd donned his mask again. Concerning. Snow crunched beneath his boots as he straightened up and crossed both arms before his chest. You gonna hover up there and sulk all day, or are you gonna come down here and talk like a big boy? Reluctantly, sinister, Naruto did the latter, drifting down towards him. As ever, his mask hid the upper half of his face. Not so the lower, that was set in stone. You haven't gone back to your world yet? Not just yet. Sinister scratched the back of his neck, usual verbose behavior, or his scorn, nowhere to be seen. I wanted to talk. He gestured expansively to the snowy wastes around them. Then talk. You spared that Viltrumite woman. Her name is Thula. Subtly, he focused chakra in his left hand. Is this the part where you tell me I should have killed her? No, at length, Sinister shook his head, battered blonde bangs swaying in the breeze. I suggested that you recruit allies wherever you could. You're following my advice, I don't begrudge you that, but... Kurama hissed. Here we go. Naruto's right foot shifted ever so slightly, strengthening his stance. I envy you. The sudden confession nearly floored him, as did the admission that followed. This life of yours. I'll be honest, there's a part of me that wants to fight you, take it from you. He tensed. The world held his breath. Sinister shook his head, but I won't. Naruto released a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. You wouldn't win anyway, old man. Is that what you believe? His older self smiled, a worn, sad thing, its edges ground down by time. You might be surprised. I'd make a better showing than most. Without warning, he changed tact. Where are you off to in such a hurry? There's not much up here. What was the harm in telling him? I'm hunting someone. Sinister tilted his head, thumbed his chin and made a noise of realization. Radcliffe, then. I remember him. Rex's old boss, makes sense he'd still be alive about now. He did have an old facility up this way. Who the hell was Rex? His dark counterpart offered him a hand, literally, before he could contemplate the name further. Mind if I join you? Naruto balked. Not sure that's a good idea. Much to his annoyance, Sinister remained undaunted. Why not? You, me, killing some bozos. It'll be fun. You aren't afraid of killing, are you, son? Oi, he batted his hand away. We are literally the same person. Don't go calling me son. His other self clicked his tongue, admonishing him. I'm also much older than you. As if he'd forgotten. And if I ever grow up to be like you, I'll slit my throat. By all means, the world doesn't need another me. Fine. He clearly wanted something up here. Think you can keep up, old man? Sinister grinned. Lead the way. Angstrom Levy looked left. Angstrom warily looked right. Angstrom saw not a soul in sight. Alright, then, he muttered to himself, rubbing his palms together. Now or never. He'd isolated himself in the basement of Naruto's home and locked the steel stairs therein, effectively sealing himself in, just in case, all in the vain hope that this would work. And if it didn't, any mistake he made would be contained. Fire Shadow would understand. He was doing this to help him. It was all he ever did, he just wanted to help. Reluctantly, he opened a portal. A green tether of light bloomed at his touch. Angstrom peered at it, ready to dodge back at the slightest danger. In many ways, his portals were doors. But unlike doors, the contents on the other side were often varied. As ever, it was akin to gambling, he had no way of knowing what was on the other side, in many ways it was up to chance. Random. Why, there was that one time he'd accidentally opened a portal into a universe filled with zombies and nearly caused an apocalypse. Not doing that again. Such was why he needed Naruto's help. And the Mauler twins. He could so much good for this world, save so many lives, realities from collapsing. He just needed a little help. But he'd been careful this time, followed all the instructions. So this should work. It had to work. It must. Hello, he called out, not willing to venture through for fear of being attacked or worse. Are you there? An colorfully clad arm lanced forth out the tether, grabbed him by the collar and yanked. He dug his feet in desperately, to no avail, his captor was too strong, and he found himself hauled forward, nearly all the way in. By some mercy, his attacker deigned to emerge halfway rather than pull him through. A familiar face stared back. Naruto's face. It didn't belong to Sinister. This one was calmer. Smiling. Wearing orange, black, and blue colors. You again, this third counterpart took one look at him and tooted. I told you not to come back. Do you have a death wish? I don't. Angstrom raised both hands to show himself harmless before he could be killed or worse, captured, tortured and interrogated. I was just passing through. Vanguard would have been better, he was a Viltrumite, true, but a decent enough fellow so long as you were useful to his regime, and not necessarily cruel. Multitask was, in essence, far more unpredictable. Because you see, he never stopped smiling. Always, always, always smiling. I need your help. He said. This again. I'm busy. A newborn babe wailed in the background on the portal's other side. Levy's brow shot into his hair. Another one? You've been busy since we last spoke. The ever-smiling man merely tilted his head. You have no idea. Now what do you want? It concerns another you. Sinister. I'm concerned he might be a danger. The agent shook his head, bemused. And this is my problem how? He's greedy. I'm afraid he won't be satisfied with what he has. Multitask laughed. He has designs on your universe, then. He dropped the other shoe. Yours, most likely. Multitask never stopped smiling. Not once. It simply was not in his nature to frown. But just now, his smile became sharp. Levy told him in no uncertain terms. Multiple Task paused. Tooted. All right. I'm listening. Levy kept talking. Some time later, the portal closed, releasing Levy. Angstrom released a deep, shuddering breath and leaned against the wall, massaging his poor throat. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. It had to be him, no other choice. Someone else might have gotten it wrong. Rex had seen some serious SHT in his day. This took the cake. And ate it. Then went back for seconds. In conclusion. Holy SHT. You must be Rex. A beaming blonde BSTRD stood before him, idly wiping BLD from his hair. Your boss had good things to say about you before I popped his skull. Crap baskets. That would explain all the BLD then, wouldn't it? He looked like he'd gone through a blender. No, that wasn't right, he was the blender, and everyone else had been sliced and diced, minced and finced like a fruit smoothie. He could still see the bodies, what was left of them at any rate. What was that old drowning pool song again? Let the bodies hit the floor. Yeah, that about some things up here. The boy raised his hands. Whoa, whoa. I don't want any trouble. No, son, the blond man tooted softly. No, you do not. A hand came down on his head, musing his hair. Tell me, how do you feel about adoption? So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 5. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author NeonZangetsu on FANFICTIONnet. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.